You know how long I've been waiting for this? Woo, I'm about to make a name for myself there.
What is up, everybody? Chris of Midlife Crisis Media here. Welcome to more 4K UHD box sets on tonight's Film Collection 2024 stream. I did not think it was going to take nearly as long as it did to talk about a third of my box set collection on this format, like I did last week. So what was, I thought, going to be 2 different streams is now going to be 3. And now that I have this pile of stuff right here that I'm going to talk about tonight, I'm like, yeah, it was a good idea. So tonight is more 4K UHD box sets, and next Thursday will be even more 4K UHD box sets. So I hope you're prepared. I did not realize, well, when you see these on the shelving unit that I have, it doesn't look like a huge amount until you start pulling them down and stacking them up, and it's like, yeah, that is quite a bit. Multiple movies in one package, whatever. So lots of stuff to cover tonight. Let's just hope I don't go hoarse. So before I start, wet the old whistle. And why do I do these streams? 4 reasons. Good content for the channel. It's fun. Get to talk to awesome people. And 4, it's good to have a visual record of everything in your collection just in case something happens. So let's get into this. So last week we ended with the D's. D's, yes. No. Last movie I talked about, I do believe, was my box set of Dune. And between last week and today, another box set showed up that on the shelf sits right before Dune. I will save that for the recent pickup video. I will not ruin that now. So starting off with the E's today, starting off with Ender's Game. This is one of the Lionsgate steelbooks that were exclusive to Best Buy when they were actually carrying film on physical media. They do not do that at all anymore. Walmart seems to be picking up their slack now because they're starting to get all the exclusive steelbooks and stuff. But I don't really have a Walmart near me, so it's kind of lost to me, but I don't care. So this was, I think, a movie that was released at a very bad time. You have a summer science fiction extravaganza type thing. Not an action movie, but it is like a visual effects heavy film that cost a lot of money, has a lot of really well-known stars in it, like Harrison Ford and Ben Kingsley and Asa, what's his name? Asa, can you remember this kid's name? Whatever. I can't remember. Anyway, but you have this big movie that you would think would be a summer release, and they released it in October during spooky season. No surprise, nobody went and saw it. It's based on a really popular book in a series of novels by Orson Scott Card, who ended up being a pretty big piece of shit. So I read the first book, did not go to see the movie, just never got around to doing it in the theater. Like I said, came out at a really bad time. Watched that on home video, and I was like, I was an idiot. I probably should have gone to see it theatrically. So it's about a war that's happening between the Earth and another race, which you never really get to see, but they're like insectoid, and we're losing badly. So the government decides to start conscripting really intelligent children to come up with ways of winning the war that your typical soldier types can't. And one of the kids that's conscripted is this kid named Ender. Turns out to be one of the smartest people in the world and does some things that you don't think. And it has a really cool twist ending that was supposed to lead into another film, which I wish we got, but we didn't. Really well made, really well acted. It's got a fantastic musical score by Steve Jablonsky. And this is one of those steelbooks that has a hidden image in it. That's why I like these Lionsgate steelbooks, and I was always going to Best Buy to pick them up because I thought they were really kind of cool. So right now it looks like Ender in his zero-G training suit, and when you take the sleeve off, it's him in his standard military uniform, and you can kind of see kind of a clue as to the ending of the movie right there, which is pretty rad. Another one on the back that I won't spoil if you have not seen the movie yet, it actually gives away the ending of the movie, which I will not do. But I think it's a really well-made flick. I really enjoy it. Just sucks that the guy who wrote the novels is a piece of shit. Next up, we have one from, what is this, Vinegar Syndrome. Like I keep on saying, Vinegar Syndrome releases some of the strangest movies on home video. You know, they're a boutique label. Started off doing nothing but releasing softcore porn on DVD and Blu-ray and all that, and then they kind of shifted focus. They still release some of that kind of stuff, but I don't think they've actually gone 4K with that stuff yet. But they license some weird films that you would never expect anyone to want to license to upscale to 4K or just put on Blu-ray in general. One of them was Existenz. This is a David Cronenberg science fiction body horror movie. Came out in 1999, same summer as The Matrix, and the movie was advertised as if it were a natural continuation of The Matrix, almost like it took place in the same universe. And it lied a lot. Got me really excited to go and see it. I wasn't a really big fan of Cronenberg's films at that point in time because while I love, Scanners and his early stuff and The Fly remake with Jeff Goldblum, Dead Ringers I wasn't really big on, especially Crash. Crash, a friend of mine was really excited about it. And if you've never seen Crash, it's based on a book by J.G. Ballard, I want to say, that was all about getting sexually excited by getting into a near fatal car crash. So the whole movie is just these people getting in a horrible car crash and then banging each other right afterwards. Holly Hunter's in it, James Spader, Deborah Kara Unger, Elias Koteas. Elias Koteas goes to the point where he starts losing limbs in these crashes. But there's Holly Hunter getting naked in the movie was a big thing about it. And whenever she would get into a car crash, all she would do is she'd open the passenger door, grab her shirt, rip it open, and you would see one boob, and then that would be it. And she would do that every time. Just oh my God, I'm so hot. Check it out. Anyway, so I was not a big fan of Cronenberg's films at this point in time. I thought that he was losing focus. He was making these interesting body horror type movies like Videodrome and The Fly and all that. And then just kind of started just doing weird stuff for the sake of being weird. Also, Naked Lunch kind of, I think, falls into that camp too. So wasn't excited when I heard this was coming out. But then when I saw that trailer that made it look like The Matrix, and they were actually making it sound like it was a Matrix style, mindfuck film. I go to see it opening day, and that's not what I got. I got another body horror film that does deal with video games and stuff, but just like I say with the original Tron, one of the reasons why the original Tron, I think, didn't do as well as Disney had hoped was it used a lot of computer jargon for 1982 that people were not familiar with, because in 1982, not many people had computers in their home. Did not know what RAM was. Did not know what a motherboard and all that kind of stuff was. So these people are throwing these terms around, and it's just going over everybody's head because it was not common knowledge stuff. Nowadays, everybody knows it. Same with Existenz. It was using video game terminology that wasn't commonplace yet. Because what is it? Grand Theft Auto 3 and those open world style games weren't quite a thing yet. They hadn't really come out. So they're tossing around terms like NPCs and all this other kind of virtual reality terminology. And now it's commonplace. Now I watch this movie and I get it because I understand what they're talking about. But back then I was kind of ignorant to that kind of stuff. So it didn't make any sense. So I'm sitting there going, wow, there's some cool, weird stuff going on in this movie. And yeah, the physical, practical effects are really kind of cool. And, yeah, it's interesting, but I have absolutely no idea what this plot is about. So to sum it up, I'll try to sum it up as succinctly as I can. In the future that this takes place in, video games are the number one entertainment source, especially virtual reality games where you can plug in with a bunch of different people and play together. So figure an MMORPG, which is another kind of term that they were trying to coin there, but you play it in virtual reality, with your friends. There's this video game developer named Allegra Geller, who is the best or the greatest video game developer ever, and she's got this new game coming out. She's testing it. There's an assassination attempt, while she's testing this game in this church. And the guy that's assigned to protect her is played by Jude Law. And it starts to get really strange because you find out that the video game console that she uses to play the game is kind of alive, and it uses parts of animals and stuff, and it looks like a fetus, and it plugs into a port on your back, which is what this is on the back. Everybody at birth in this movie is like when they're born, they are given a port in their back that attaches to their spinal column, and you plug this thing into it, and that's what inserts your consciousness into these games. So it's like you have this assassination plot going on, then it goes into the virtual reality world because she needs to go inside of it, or Allegra needs to go inside of it to fix the game because it got damaged during the assassination attempt, and they even need to go into another game within that game. So it's kind of like layers, and it gets really kind of confusing, but if you stick with it, it's actually really rewarding, and I think it's kind of fantastic now. Like I said, I watched it in the theater opening weekend, and I was like, hell no, that movie, the trailers lied to me. It can go to hell. I'm never watching that again. And then I got this on sale on the Vinegar Syndrome Black Friday sale, and it was discounted to a point where I was like, I'll give it another shot. And if it sucks, I can always just sell it or give it to my brother or something like that. And I watched it, and when it was over, I kind of wanted to watch it all over again because now it was like watching one of those puzzle movies where all the stuff is in front of your face the whole time. You just don't have any context. And now that you've got everything explained to you at the end, I wanted to go back and rewatch it to see what I missed. Times change. And it comes with a booklet that has like a essay on the making of the film. You can see Willem Dafoe is in it. Like I said, Jude Law, Jennifer Jason Leigh is Allegra, the game developer. Ian Holm is also in it. There's like the gun made out of fish bones that they have to assemble while in the game. Here is the game, the console. It looks like a fetus, like I said. And the thing that plugs into your back looks like an umbilical cord. It's a really strange movie, but I really, really enjoy it. Now I do. So I'm kind of glad that I picked it up. And got it for a pretty good price. So there's that. I think I'm going to put this thing back together. Next up, we have one of my favorites from my childhood. I saw this in the theater opening weekend, 1980. I was either 4 or 5, and my mom was the one who really wanted to go see it, but she knew that me and my brother would like it because of Star Wars being such a huge thing, and that is Flash Gordon. This movie is one of the cheesiest things you will ever see in your entire life, and I fully admit that. Back when I was a kid, I thought this was the greatest thing I've ever seen. I was like, what the? Star Wars what? What is that? Flash Gordon all the way. Pretty colors, crazy costumes and sets. It didn't look all dingy like Star Wars did. Everything looked like right out of a comic book. And absolutely love it. And I still love it to this day, even though I do recognize that it is kind of shitty. But it was made as camp, and it definitely achieves that. But a football star gets kidnapped along with a reporter and a doctor off of the Earth and transplanted to the planet of Mongo, ruled by Ming the Merciless here. And turns out Flash is the best chance that everybody that Ming is ruling over to overthrow Ming and bring like peace back to that planet and that area of space that they occupy. And there's a lot of crazy characters that you get introduced to, like the Hawkmen and the people that live on Arborea, who are like weird archer thieves. I don't know. They feel like Dungeons and Dragons characters to me. But lots of awesome stuff going on in it. And like I said, costume design is amazing. Set design is second to none. Special effects are great. It has a freaking amazing soundtrack by Queen of all bands. Queen? Freddie Mercury? Yeah. And it's fantastic. It's just the script is really cheesy and hokey. But it does have a ton of extras on it. You can see here. It also came with a poster that has the original artwork, the original theatrical one sheet, which I always thought looked really cool. I've always wanted a poster of that for like my room when I was a kid. And then the new artwork that was commissioned for this release. And you can see Clytus up here with his eyes. Clytus on board. Another movie that kind of, I don't think would be rated PG like it is nowadays. I think it would definitely be a PG-13. Got a booklet that is just nothing but stories about the making of the movie. You want to see some crazy shit. Let's see if I can find some pictures of these costumes. I mean, Timothy Dalton, who ended up becoming James Bond, is in it. He's the only person who seems to be taking it seriously, and it's kind of cool that he is the one who is doing it. Let's see if I can find anything else. That Arborea set. Got that craziness right there. I mean, it's nuts. I think it's a lot of fun to watch. And it's one of those movies I can put on any day of the week. And this also comes with not just the movie on 4K and Blu-ray, but also a documentary called Life After Flash, which is all about Sam J. Jones, the actor who was hired to play Flash Gordon and then was fired before the movie got released. So the voice of Flash Gordon that you hear in the movie is not Sam J. Jones' voice. I guess they needed to redub pretty much the entire movie. And he started to get real cocky and arrogant because now all of a sudden he goes from being like a nobody to like a major motion picture film star, because this is a very expensive movie to make. And he kind of got real cocky and it went to his head toward the end of the production and ended up doing some stupid shit, got himself fired, and they ended up hiring somebody else to dub over his lines. So Sam J. Jones is playing the part. He's just not what you're hearing when you're watching it. He eventually got to replay Flash Gordon in the Ted movies, of all things. Here's one of my favorite anime of all time. This is the 25th anniversary edition of Ghost in the Shell. This is another steelbook from... Is this from Lionsgate? Yes, from Lionsgate. So this has another one of those rad hidden images. So you've got like a really cool multicolored profile shot of Makoto. And when you pull this off, it's her underneath. When you take her shell off, that is what she looks like underneath, because she is an android. Really cool cyberpunk movie. A lot of nudity in it, but I think it's really fun. Kind of throws some philosophical questions your way about like what does it mean to be human, kind of like Blade Runner did. And this was also a very big influence on The Matrix, especially the first one. A lot of the poses that characters make when they're like doing their little superhero-y thing in this are stolen right out of that movie. Some of the philosophical questions are too, which is pretty rad. Like Sentinels and all that, and, the machines are machines, but are they actually sentient? Are they alive? Kind of thing. And we get those questions answered in mostly in the sequels. But absolutely love that film. I used to play that late at night at the video store that I worked at the back in the mid-90s. And every time I would put it on, I want to say by the time the opening credits were over, because there's this it has an interesting score. Once that opening title scene was over, somebody would be asking if they could rent it. Next up, I have a 2-pack of Gladiator and Braveheart. It's kind of a strange mix. I guess Paramount now owns the rights to Gladiator. It used to be a DreamWorks title, but I guess that DreamWorks, now is owned by Paramount. So they decided to put these two Oscar winners together. Gladiator won Best Picture the year it was released. I think that was 2000. I thought it was not deserving of that award at all. Don't get me wrong. I like it quite a bit. Best movie of the year? No. I don't even remember what there was that year. Moulin Rouge, I would say, is probably the better movie. I would have liked to have seen that win Best Picture, even though I'm not a fan of musicals. I'm not going to deny that was not a well-made one. But Braveheart was one of those movies that I had zero interest in seeing and ended up going to see it because, and I brought this up plenty of times before, that there was a dollar theater, like a second-run theater that opened up really close to my home back then in the the mid-90s. And the week that they opened, every single day I would go there and see a different movie for $1. And one of them was Braveheart. And I wouldn't have seen it until it came to home video otherwise. And when it was over, I was like, I'm a freaking idiot. I should have gone to see that in the theater. That was so freaking fantastic. It's a great historical action movie, and Gladiator is kind of the same way, even though none of them are historically accurate, but they deal with historical figures. Some of them. Next up, we have the Godfather trilogy. This is the 50th anniversary set. So this has all 3 films in it, but one of the things that I wanted to get this for was when it comes to the first two films, they are both considered absolute classics, and I tend to agree. I absolutely love the first one. A little slow at first, but you're getting introduced to all the characters and like the world that they inhabit and all that. So once that stuff's out of the way, that movie is really like involving. The second one, I know a lot of people have a problem with it because it's like been split in half. The first half of the movie deals with Marlon Brando's character when he was younger in New York, played by Robert De Niro. And then once that section of the movie's over, it flashes forward to past the first movie to like, I want to say 10 years later, and deals with Al Pacino and the stuff he's dealing with, which is kind of the same as what his father did deal with back in like the 1940s or whatever it was, or the 30s. And, deals with like his brother, betraying him and all that kind of stuff. Both movies I think are absolutely fantastic and like must-watch movies. And then there's the third one. The third one, which I felt after the second movie kind of ended in a certain way. It's not like it needed to end there, but I could have been okay with it ending with the second movie. But Francis Ford Coppola, gotta milk it for all he can, decided to make a third movie, and it was like critically panned. Like everyone was like, this is terrible. Coppola decided to cast his daughter, who is a really good director, but back then she was trying to be an actress and she was terrible. Winona Ryder was originally supposed to play that character, and she had to bow out for whatever reason. And then at the last minute, he was just like, I'm going to throw my daughter in there. And she is like the most uncharismatic actor you've ever seen in your life. She's just saying her movies like, yeah, I guess someone got shot. And it's like, no, she's terrible in it. And she kind of ruins the movie. But, nowadays, Francis Ford Coppola is a little more experimental. He's got that Megalopolis movie coming out that everyone is saying is like one of the worst things ever. But he had a movie he made like 10 years ago where he was taking it to all these film festivals, and every time he would get feedback at these film festivals, he would re-edit the whole movie again and then show it at another festival and get more feedback and then re-edit the whole movie again. He's getting weird. So at some point within the last like 10 years, he decided to go back and re-edit the third film. So now it's called, instead of The Godfather 3, it's called The Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone. And I wanted to get that version of it because I'm like, hey, I wasn't a fan of the third film. Maybe this version will be better. And then I talked to my brother. My brother's like, dude, I went and saw it in the theater. It was shit. He's like, you think the original version of the third film was kind of dumb? Wait till you see that new version. He's like, no, it has no business being distributed in any way, shape, or form. It should have been like a weird oddity extra on a Blu-ray or something, but not the new official version of the movie. So I'm hoping that it still has the original version on here on top of the Coda. If that's the case, I still have not watched Coda, but yeah, we'll see. Also has a number of bonus discs in it. I should probably open this. I don't own it for over a year. I need to sit down and rewatch these again. I watched the first movie in my high school film study class, and I was like, why are they showing us this? Are they allowed to show us this? Because it is a very violent movie. Yep. Oh, so here we go. Question asked. So there's two. Okay, this is weird. Okay, so I did not know this. There are apparently 3 cuts of Part 3. There is the theatrical, a 1991 cut, which I do might be the one that was released on home video, and now the Coda cut. Because one of the extras here in the bonus set is The Godfather Part 3, and it says right there, feature film, theatrical, and 1991 cuts, and another Blu-ray that is just all bonus features. Okay, question answered. I'm happy now. Alrighty. So if I don't like Coda, I can always fall back on the craptastic original cut of the third film. But now I want to have to watch the movie 3 times to find out which version I like the best. God damn it! Why can't I get this back in here? Is there something else I'm hitting? Oh yeah, but yeah, there's the original Godfather, Godfather Part 2, and then the Coda. And the bonus disc just has like the logo from the novel that this was based on. Yeah, the first movie is based on a novel by Mario Puzo. which I've never actually read. I should probably look into that. But anyway. Next up, we have a franchise I love, but I hate. Because this is one of, like, Nightmare on Elm Street is probably my favorite horror franchise because of the way that the movies are structured. You know, the villain is in your dreams. He can do whatever he wants. So they can throw all this crazy visual imagery and all this nuts death scenes, as much of it as they want at you. And, you know, you believe it because of what it's all about. It's about dreams. But when it comes to like a flat out, you know, reality-based slasher kind of thing, I love this franchise, but I hate this franchise because it is so uneven. And we're talking about Halloween. This is... Hang on, let me open this. I'm surprised I have not opened this one. I have not watched this one or the second one yet. Oh, I know what I'm doing this Halloween. Unboxings for your ass. So this is the original Halloween from 1978, John Carpenter's big breakthrough film. Jamie Lee Curtis's big breakout film. Also, slasher movie, one of the first like slasher movies aside from maybe Psycho that actually, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that actually made money and kind of kickstarted the genre of slashers. Like all after this, everyone was trying to make a slasher film because they were cheap to make and they seemed to rake in a ton of profit. You would not have Friday the 13th if it wasn't for Halloween. You would not have Nightmare on Elm Street. You would not have the Scream movies because they reference this constantly. Pretty much any slasher movie from the early 80s, you owe a debt. They owe a debt to Halloween. Still one of my favorite slasher horror movies. It's still effective. It's because the way it's shot, man. John Carpenter knew how to like build suspense with not much. It's like shadows and sometimes just people popping out of a background that you don't expect. Like that shot where Jamie Lee Curtis Annie is running across the street from one house to another. You know, she's babysitting at one house. And her friend, Jamie Lee Curtis is babysitting across the street, and she is running from Jamie Lee Curtis's house across the street. And when she does, the camera pans past this car that's parked on the street, and just as she passes up, Michael Myers pops up from behind it. And it's like, Jesus, like you can see him hidden in the background in some shots, a lot of shadow play. It's fantastic. It's filmed super well. It's made very well for what it is, and it was made for like no money. And it has a great score also, and it's actually kind of scary. Donald Pleasance is just like, you can tell he's like, this kind of movie is beneath me, but I'm going to make this work if it kills me. And he puts everything into it. Every line of dialogue he speaks is absolutely fantastic. So this is the special edition. So it was kind of weird. I talked about this in the pickup video where I was talking about all this stuff. But it was kind of strange the way that these were released by Scream Factory. So I used to have the big box set from Scream Factory on Blu-ray, which had all of the Michael Myers movies that were connected to the original. So it was Halloween 1 through Halloween Resurrection, and then also had the 2 Rob Zombie Halloween movies, which I absolutely despise, in that set also. But when they decided to upgrade them all to 4K, I was like, I don't give a shit about those Rob Zombie ones. I just want the original, the original series, the original 8, even though a lot of them are shit. So they released some of them in a typical, Blu-ray case, with a little slip, a cardboard slip and all that. And then they also released some of them with these like super hard cardboard slips. So I ordered 3 or 4 of them at once off of Amazon, and like 2 of them showed up with this kind of cover, and 2 of them showed up with the regular old cardboard flimsy slip. And I'm like, my OCD is going crazy because I have these on the shelf and it's like this mismatched, set. And I'm like, I sent back the ones that were in the regular slip and then went on eBay and just bought all the ones that they had that were in the extra hardcover slip. So the movie looks fantastic, by the way. I did see not this, but I saw it broadcast, on streaming in 4K. And I was like, damn, ruins all the certain images in the movie because the flaws are very evident. Michael Myers at the beginning of the movie, when he's breaking out of the prison, jumps on top of that station wagon and then slaps his hand on the window of the passenger side to break it, to scare the woman that's like still in the car. And with the HD, you can even see it on the Blu-ray. you can see that there is a wrench taped to his hand, and it's been painted flesh color so that, because it was raining out when they shot this, they figured the rain would kind of blur it, and that would not hurt the guy's hand when he would slap the window and break it. That's what's breaking the window is the wrench, but you could just flat out see that there's a wrench taped to his hand, and it is kind of funny. Kind of ruins that scene. A couple of things like that happen in the movie, but this has the original version of the movie. Does this have the TV cut? Yeah, Halloween, the extended cut in HD. So back in like the 70s and 80s, if when a movie was going to be broadcast on national television, like ABC, NBC, CBS, they wanted it to run with all the commercials, it would usually extend the movie way past 2 hours. So they needed to fill out all that extra time to get it to hit either 2.5 hours or 3 hours. So they would usually ask the filmmakers if they had any deleted scenes that they could insert back into the movie to lengthen it, possibly go back and reshoot some scenes like Spielberg did for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Well, that's what happened here. So they were making Halloween 2 at the time, and when Halloween 1 was going to be broadcast on TV, they're like, hey, while you're out there shooting all that stuff with Donald Pleasence, how about you have him reshoot some new scenes that we can insert into the movie? So there is a television cut. It doesn't really add anything to the movie. It's just you act like scenes that are talked about, like, oh, what happened? How did you talk to, or like there's a scene where Loomis, Donald Pleasence, is leaving the mental institution after Michael Myers has escaped, and there's a guy following him going like, well, what happened back there? Did you talk to him about his escape? Are they going to do anything about it? And he's like, no, I guess I have to take care of it myself. Well, you actually see that meeting now where Donald Pleasence is talking to like the heads of the hospital about how to get Michael Myers back in the hospital and all that. So it's stuff like that. It doesn't really add much to the movie, but it's not unwelcome, I guess, but doesn't really change the plot of the movie. So then we have the sequel, which came out like 3 years later, and John Carpenter was like, I don't want to have, like, they went after him hard to do this because Halloween ended up becoming one of the most profitable movies of all time because, you got a movie that cost like $300,000 to make and it made like $70 million. That's a lot of money. So they were dying to make a sequel. Universal bought the rights to the movies, and they were like, we want to make a sequel right away. And John Carpenter's like, no, I'm moving on to bigger and better things. I'll produce so I can kind of keep them on track, but I don't want to direct any of this stuff. So they passed it off to some dude named Rick Rosenthal. I think John Carpenter had something to do with the writing of the script, and they kind of expand on the first movie because this takes place right after the first movie ends. Literally like right after it happens. Like, Jamie Lee Curtis is, in the house where she's babysitting. She's getting choked up by Michael Myers. Loomis shoots him 6 times. And Michael Myers falls off the balcony into the front yard. And they look out the balcony and his body is gone. And that was where the first movie ended. Well, here it picks up where you see Loomis come running out of the house after it happened. And he rubs his hand around where Michael Myers fell and he finds like a bunch of blood, but no body. And it picks up right where Jamie Lee Curtis is being taken to the hospital to treat the wounds that she received from Michael Myers' attack and all that. And turns into a freaking bloodbath where the first movie was basically dry. There's honestly, now that I can think of it, no real blood in the first movie. It's all done in the dark, out of focus. Whenever somebody gets killed, like I said, you can see what's happening, but it's not like geysers of blood shooting out. It's really subtle. And like it makes you use your imagination because what you're thinking of is happening is actually worse than what's actually happening. And that was really a good way of cutting the costs down. No need for crazy effects makeup and all that. It was no blood. This one is just drowning in it. This one has all the slasher stuff that was popular in the 80s in this. Like Michael Myers is like slash people's throats and spraying and burning people's faces off and burning hot, baths and puts a needle in some dude's eye, hammers a guy in the back of the head and rips the back of his head off kind of shit. It's crazy. A guy slips on a pool of blood the size of a giant room because one person has been been exsanguinated and their blood is like all over the floor and he ends up slipping on it and all that. It's not a bad movie. It does introduce the fact that Michael Myers is Jamie Lee Curtis's or Laurie Strode's brother, so they are related, and that's why he has targeted her instead of in the first movie where it's just kind of like a random thing. It's like, you guys taunted me, and now you're dead kind of thing. Here, it's like, no, he killed his sister in the first movie at the beginning, and he's going after his other sister, which is fine. I like that quite a bit. But this one definitely ends. It has an ending. Like, no more Michael Myers after this, because John Carpenter had control of the franchise. He was like, look, I don't want to keep on making these Michael Myers movies. They're going to get dumber and dumber and dumber. How about we end it with this one, and then every Halloween we make another Halloween-themed movie. How about that? So this one made money. So Universal said okay to that idea, and they kept on going with it. So the following year, we get Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which has no Michael Myers in it, except for like a little snippet of somebody watching Halloween on television. This one is about Halloween masks that are going to kill all the kids in the world. There's an evil warlock that runs this manufacturing company that's making these masks. They are booby-trapped to kill kids. And a doctor finds out about it when one of his patients gets killed by this like unstoppable dude, and he traces it back to this company and finds out there's like this end of the world plot. And it's nuts, and it's crazy, and it's kind of silly and stupid, but it's well presented, it's well written, it's kind of spooky, it has a fantastic score by John Carpenter, and it has what I think is one of the greatest endings of a film ever. I love the way this movie ends. It kind of just ends on a moment where you're like, is it or is it not going to happen? Boom. You're never going to know. So I think this is a fantastic, shitty movie. It's bad, but good in all the best ways. If it was not called Halloween 3 and just called Season of the Witch, I think it would get way more respect than it does. But because it's part of the Halloween franchise, people went and saw this movie expecting Michael Myers. They didn't get him. Nobody else went to see it. Like that first weekend, it made some money. And then the word of mouth got around. Michael Myers ain't in it. Nobody else went and saw it, and it bombed. Killed that idea that John Carpenter had about a Halloween-themed movie every year from that point on, with one movie. So it was like a huge bomb, and it critically panned, but it has gained a cult audience over the years, and I watch it almost every year now on Halloween. I'll probably watch it again this year. But because that did not make any money, but the Michael Myers movies did. A few years later, Mustafa Akkad, who's produced all these movies, was kind of like, I'm bringing the character out of mothballs. We're going to find a way to bring him back. We're going to make another Halloween movie with Michael Myers in it. Let's see how that does. And that was Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. And this one made a lot of money for a relatively small budget. I think it was like $2 million it cost to make this, and it made like 25, 30. So that's kind of a pretty good return on profit. So turns out Michael Myers didn't die at the end of the second movie. He was severely hurt, but he was in a coma. And upon hearing that he has a niece out there, while he's in the coma, he pops out of it and then goes on another killing spree to kill his niece. And it's really well made. It's decently acted. Some of the actors in it are kind of, but it's not bad. It's just more of what Halloween 2 kind of was, where let's just do some really outlandish, gory kills. Like Michael Myers grabs a shotgun, doesn't shoot anybody with it. He basically takes a whole shotgun and sticks it through somebody and then nails them to a door with it. So he pushes it through their whole body and then through a door after that. So they hang there with a giant shotgun through the chest. Was that really necessary? It looked kind of cool, but I don't know. And it does have, I think, another really great ending to the movie where, is the evil that Michael Myers is it transferable? Or is it like something that's in the bloodline? And I think it's a fantastic ending that unfortunately gets ruined in Part 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, if you ask me. This was made by one of the worst horror directors ever. I've seen 3 movies by this guy. I've seen this. Was it Dark Angel? I remember I had the movie on VHS. I bought a copy of it used at my local video store. It was like Black Angel or Dark Angel or something like that. It had the guy who played Johnny Cage in the original Mortal Kombat movie in it as the lead. Lyndon Ashby was in it. And then he made The Omen Part 4, which was a television movie on Fox. All of them I thought were shit. So basically undoes the ending of the fourth movie. Michael Myers got shot by a bunch of cops, fell down a well. And this one, he's like, oh no, there happened to be a secret exit to the well. So I crawled out, went down the river, and then some homeless bum that lives in the forest decided to take me in for a whole year while I was in a coma sleeping. So I guess all it takes is like a couple of things to put Michael Myers in a coma for a while, and then he'll just wake up and pick up like nothing happened. And it's just really badly made. It is really badly acted. It has one of the worst actresses I've ever seen in my life in this. Her name is, was it Kaplan? Wendy Kaplan. Who plays this, what was her fucking name? I do not even remember her character's name. I've blocked it out. Whatever. Every time she opens her mouth, I want to rip my ears off. She is so bad. She is so annoying and obnoxious and just terrible that I was like, when she gets killed, I'm spoiling that. I was like, I cheer. Every time I watch this and she gets killed, I'm like, finally! I don't have to listen to that voice anymore. But it's just really stupid. They start introducing some really dumb ideas. Here is where the whole Cult of Thorn bullshit started. Where it's like there's like this cult following Michael around. There's this dude dressed like a cowboy that is following Michael around, breaks him out of prison at the end. It is so dumb, so dumb. And like I said, it is one of the most unsatisfying films, and that's where I think it started to go to shit. Well, and then because of the reputations of two of the following three movies, I think Scream Factory realized that if they released these movies separately, only one of them would sell. The other two would just sit there and gather dust. So they forced you to buy a 3-pack instead. That is this Halloween 4K collection from 1995 to 2002. So when Halloween 5 bombed, the franchise kind of went dormant for a few years. So that was made in 89. Part of the reason why I think Part 5 sucked was because 4 was such a big hit. They rushed a sequel out as fast as possible, just like with Nightmare on Elm Street 5, where Part 4 was like the highest grossing movie that they had done so far in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So they were like, quick, we have to have another movie out for this exact same point in time next year. And they just rushed out a script and started filming a movie. Same thing with this. Halloween 4 was a big hit, rushed out a script, hired some no-name director to direct it, and just crapped it out as fast as they could. And it kind of killed the franchise for a little while. So that was in 89. And then in 1995, the Weinsteins, Disney, bought the rights to Halloween. And they decided to make Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. This is one of those movies that you hear about that had horrible behind-the-scenes issues, post-production issues. So there was a screenplay written called Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers, by this dude named Daniel Farrens, and I've read the script, and it's not bad. One of the producers read the script and said it was one of the scariest things that they had ever read, and they were really excited to actually get the movie made because of their reaction to it. Well, you can't do that when you're working with Harvey Scissorfingers, Harvey Weinstein. The guy wants his fingers at everything and started making changes to the script, locked the director out of the editing room, and basically paid another director to reshoot half the movie. Because the way that the Cult of Thorns stuff was dealt with in the original version of the movie, they said wasn't exciting enough for general audiences. Like, no one would get it or care. So they tried to turn it into an action movie at the end and have Michael go on a random killing spree for no reason, complete with green blood flying all over the place, because they needed a higher body count, and that was all they really cared about. So I saw this in the theater opening weekend, and I absolutely hated it. My brother saw it the day before I did, and he loved it and went and saw it again with me the following day because he liked it so much. And when it was over, I looked at him like, you're crazy. I'm like, that was shit. So, no, it was pretty fun. I'm like, no, that was shit. So Michael is part of this Cult of Thorn. It's a curse that is passed through his bloodline. Michael's the latest person to have been infected with it. And he needs to have another family member to pass the curse down to and the whole idea behind the curse is to protect the cult. But for some reason, they always go around killing all their family members. I don't know if it's like, they don't really explain it very well. I always said it was like some weird, twisted sense of guilt. Like they were trying to end the curse by killing all the people in their family so that they couldn't pass it on and it could end. And it was just, there was always somebody else that would be able to be have it passed on to. So in this one, they force Michael to rape Jamie, the little girl from the 4th and 5th movie when she's a little bit older. And now they have like this, she has a baby and the baby is going to be the next person to inherit the curse. And it's like, it just feels icky and it's gross, which was not the idea of the original script. That was not the thing. Jamie just happened to be pregnant. And in the new version, they make it sound like Michael like assaulted her so they could get a baby, and it's gross as hell. So the version that was theatrically released, I hated. I ended up buying a VHS bootleg when I found out that there was a version of what was called the producer's cut floating around out there, because I was curious to what it was. And I found one at a convention I went to. I was a Star Trek convention of all things. Bought it, watched it. I'm like, it's still not great, but it's definitely better than that crap we got in the theater. And it's on here. Both versions of the movie have been remastered in 4K. So you have the theatrical cut and you have the producer's cut. Paul Rudd's first big movie. He and Paul Rudd and Adam Scott, who was on Parks and Recreation, both went and auditioned for Miramax or Dimension Films for a bunch of movies that they're planning on making at the exact same time. Paul Rudd got hired to play a grown-up version of Tommy Doyle from the first film in this, and Adam Scott got hired to play a character in Hellraiser 4, which I think is funny as hell. And they both say that was the reason they started getting more work was because of these movies. Not great movie, either version of it, but it's definitely, the producer's cut is definitely better than the theatrical cut by a long shot. Still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but the one that they knew everybody would want to buy and force you to buy this set to get it is Halloween H20, 20 years later, or Halloween 7. This is the one where Jamie Lee Curtis decided to finally come back. She wanted to end the franchise here. Part of the stipulation was, if I make this movie for you and you decide to make another one, you're killing my character off. So this is supposed to be the big swan song for the character. Like she was gonna, either Michael was gonna die for good or Laurie Strode was gonna die for good. And I think it's fantastic. I think it's the best movie since the original. It definitely has the feel of the original. It's very well made. It's classy. Yeah, there's some gory bits here and there, but it's not like as in your face as some of the other ones are. But stabbings and whatnot. I think the nastiest thing in the movie is the broken leg thing. But it's really well made, really well acted. Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of going all out. I love the fact that in order to cope with all the stuff that happened in the first two movies, she's become a fully functioning alcoholic and all that. And when that scene where she finally says, "The hell with this, I'm not running from it anymore. I'm going to face him and we're going to end this tonight." That is one of my favorite scenes in horror movies. I think it's fantastic. Although there were production problems with this one too. Part of it is this shot right here where Jamie Lee Curtis is looking through a window or a window and a door, and she sees Michael Myers facing her. And the mask changes between the shots because they had 3 different masks in the movie. They had the one that they started off with, and it looked too blank canvasy. I guess the way they said it, the eye holes were too big, and it didn't have any discernible features. It didn't have everything was kind of flat. So halfway through the movie, they changed it, and it was more of a face-hugging mask that kind of took on the shape of the dude who was wearing it. Like the stuntman who was wearing the mask kind of took on his face shape, which is fine. I think it was fine that it looked like it was also kind of deteriorated over the years. But then in between, when they were all fighting over, the director and the producers were fighting over what the mask should look like, there's a CGI mask that pops up every here and there, which is kind of shitty. This is kind of what the final version of the mask looked like. That's the one that hugs the actor's face and kind of took on his features. But it's really well made. It's, like I said, it's classy like the first one kind of is. And it ends with a definitive ending. But turns out there's a loophole that they exploited. But fantastic movie. I saw that twice in the theater. And after seeing the 6th one in the theater and absolutely hating it, when the trailer for H20 was released theatrically, I saw the trailer and I looked at I think it was with my whole family. It was my brother, my mother, and my father. And I looked at them and was like, nope. And they were like, yeah, we're there with you. And then the reviews came in, and it really got me interested because I'm like, is it actually supposed to be good? Like, can it be good? I don't know. We'll see. And I went and saw it opening day with my brother and my mother, and all of us liked it. Surprising. And then we have this back alley abortion of a film. So because H2O was a huge hit, it made a lot of money. They decided that there was a loophole that Mustafa Akkad had inserted into the ending of H20. So there was a moment where you never saw what Michael Myers' body was. And that's the loophole. Turns out that when Jamie Lee Curtis had knocked Michael out before they threw his body into the ambulance that she ends up stealing with him in it, he ended up attacking one of the paramedics that was trying to put him on a stretcher and crushed his larynx and switched outfits with him. So this paramedic that can't talk is now wearing Michael's clothes and got thrown into the back of that ambulance. And then when Jamie Lee Curtis's character takes him out finally, she killed an innocent person. It is so dumb, especially when you see like the flashbacky part of it in here. It is so bad. So we got Halloween Resurrection. Jamie Lee Curtis got what she wanted. She said, if you decide to make another movie after H20, just kill me off in the beginning, which is exactly what they did. And it is really dumb. The whole movie's dumb. So Michael is not going after any family members or anything like that now that Jamie Lee Curtis's character is gone and his niece is dead. So what does a serial killer who kills family members do? He goes back to his house and finds a group of 20-somethings filming a reality web show about people trying to survive the night in Michael Myers' house, which they say is haunted. And he's like, oh, cool. Y'all dead. And Busta Rhymes is in it, and he kung fu's Michael Myers in the face and says, like, what is it? He has like a line where he does like a motherfucker, like, so eat this motherfucker, beats his ass with it. It's so dumb. It is really bad. I saw it in the theater and I was like, why did I pay to see this? Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica, who played Starbuck, this was like one of her first big things. And she is so bad in this movie. I remember saying to myself when Battlestar Galactica started, I was like, they actually gave her a job after that movie. She must have a great PR person, a great agent, because she sucked in this. But it is so bad in every single way. And they brought back the guy who directed Part 2, who famously quit at the end from the stress of filming Part 2. They brought him back to direct this one, and he quit again. So it's like they had to bring in some no-namer to finish off the movie. It is so bad. It is so bad. I cannot stand it. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. But the franchise ended there because nobody went and saw that one because nobody was dumb enough like me to go and see it. But anyway, moving on. Next up, we have another one of my favorite horror franchises, even though only 2 of them I really like. And 3 of them if you count the reboot. But that's Hellraiser. So Arrow Video had put out a Blu-ray set that was the Scarlet Box, I think it was called. And all it really had in it was the first 3 Hellraiser movies in it. So you had Hellraiser, Hellbound Hellraiser 2, and Hellraiser 3 Hell on Earth. The reason I really bought it was because I wanted to see the uncut version of Hellraiser 3 in HD, because the uncut version that was released on VHS and DVD, like the stuff that was edited back into the movie was still a VHS quality and it looked like shit. I was like, oh, maybe they'll remaster it. No, they didn't do it. Didn't even put that cut on that set. I was really pissed. But they ended up doing this 4K version that has the first 4 movies in it, which is better. It does have the uncut version of not only Part 2, but Part 3, and an assembly cut of the Troubled Part 4. So another kind of interesting cover. So there is one that had Pinhead on it, and that was the first one to sell out. That was like the limited edition. This is the secondary one. So this is Chatterer. And if you pull the cover off, Chatterer without any skin, which is kind of cool. On the back, you've got the shot of the chains. And it's a really interesting looking set. I really like this because now you have that shot of Chatterer, and you pull this off, and now you have the bones. And one of the things that's kind of cool is you pull this off. You're not supposed to be able to see everything that's red because of the cover. So when you pull this off, you're supposed to be able to see the "Help Me, I Am in Hell" from the second movie. So yeah, you got a disc dedicated to each movie, multiple cuts on each one, except for the first one. The first one doesn't really have any extra cuts. We have such sights to show you. So first movie, I think, is a fantastic, almost haunted house movie. It's based on one of probably my favorite novel of all time, which is called The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. It's hard to explain because there's a lot of complicated things going on in it, especially for a horror movie. But there's this puzzle box. When you solve it, these demons come out from hell, and they offer you an eternity of either pleasure or pain. Most people decide to take pleasure. Pleasure usually is pain. One of the people that has opened the box and dealt with the Cenobites before ends up escaping from the Cenobites, but he has no skin because they ripped it all off of him as part of their deal. And he's trying to kill people to get his skin back. Like, the more people he kills and their blood he absorbs, his skin starts to grow back. And it turns into this whole family affair thing that is really complicated and gross. And I think it's a fantastic movie because everyone thinks the Cenobites are the villains in it. They really aren't. It's the dude who comes back to life to kill people is the real villain. The Cenobites are just kind of there. They were never meant to be the villains of the piece. They were just meant to be an obstacle. What's up, Retro Coop? Second movie picks up right where the first one left off, but now we actually get to go into hell, and we get to see what it looks like, and it is like a minimalist hell. It looks like an MC Escher painting, and it's really cool, and I love the way they went with it. Gets super gory, of course. This one, the first one's gory also, but this one is even more so. There's an unrated cut, which is even nastier, which I love. But I think it's a fantastic, fun, off-the-rails horror movie. It's like almost like an action horror movie. It's pretty rad. And then that one kind of ends with like an ending where like, oh, we guess we could make another one. So they did, and that was the one that I saw in the theater. That was Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth, which stars Jadzia Dax from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And saw that opening night with one of my friends, and we thought it was the coolest freaking thing we'd ever seen in our lives. The guy who directed it had made these movies called Waxwork 1 and Waxwork 2, which we both thought were kind of rad as hell. So we're excited to see what he can do with the Hellraiser movie. And basically, he made a horror action movie. It's super fast-paced. Pinhead is now the villain. Pinhead was never the villain in any of the other ones. He was just, like I said, kind of there. Kind of became sympathetic in the second one. But now he is full-on the villain of the series, kind of like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. And he's trapped in a statue, and the more people he kills and blood he absorbs, he can finally break out of the statue and ends up going on a rampage at the end of the movie, which is cool and all, but it's really stupid. The movie's just silly. All of a sudden, we have themed Cenobites. Like the Cenobites before that we saw in the first two movies were based on the people who had opened the box, like something that they were into. Like one dude was like a little kid who you would assume would want to be a grown-up, and that's what happened. One guy was a fat slob, so he became this fat slob whose stomach had been ripped open. You know, one of them was a woman who I guess wanted to look beautiful, but their version of beautiful is what a Cenobite looks like and all that. Here it's like a DJ gets killed and turns into a DJ Cenobite. A cameraman gets turned into a Cenobite, and he turns into a cameraman Cenobite. One person smokes all the time, they get turned into the smoking Cenobite. It's really stupid. But it has some cool effects, and it does further the lore of the films, which is great and all. But the movie itself is kind of dumb. And then we have the fourth movie, Bloodline, which was one of those movies, just like Halloween 6, that was screwed up from the moment they started filming. So they hired Kevin Yager, who was a special effects guy. He created the effects for Freddy Krueger for a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. It was his first directorial turn, and he had a really cool script from what I read. There was a lot of interesting ideas being thrown around for it, and he filmed a movie that would have probably been about 2.5 hours long, and then Harvey Weinstein got wind of it and said, nope, Horror movie should be 80. Sorry, a horror movie should be 80 minutes and no longer. So we cut all of the stuff that they spent all their money on out of the movie, so they can get more showings per day, and cut all the plot out, cut all the character development out, cut all the stuff that they worked super hard on effects wise out, and the movie makes no sense. And it takes place in 3 timelines, and it follows the creator of the box's bloodline, from way in like Victorian era France to like modern day 90s, and then flashes forward to like 300 years in the future or something like that when we're in outer space. And it's like none of it makes any sense now because there's no connective tissue. So I saw that in the theater opening weekend, and me and my brother were both like, yeah, that was shit. I think this franchise is dead. And I was like, well, we had a good run with it, so whatever, it's over now. But I got wind of all the stuff that happened to it. And there is a assembly cut of part 4 on one of the discs, on the disc for part 4. And it is it does fix some things. It also creates more problems. It does spend more time in the past, which was my problem, was like they just kind of introduced the guy who made the box, and he just walks over to some guy's house and goes, here it is. No buildup as to who these people are. They open it up, a demon comes out. The guy goes, the toy maker goes back over there to get his box back and gets killed, and that part's over. It's like 15 minutes long. Here it's probably a half an hour. Makes a little bit more sense, but it's still dumb. The outer space stuff is completely different. That's completely different framing device. They use that as a wraparound story in the theatrical cut, and it's dumb the way they did it because that was all reshot. And you can tell that the lead character, who had shaved his head for that section of the movie, was now wearing a bald cap with little hairs stuck in it to make it look like he was bald again when he wasn't. And it just kind of progresses linearly now. It's like we got the stuff in the past, we got the stuff in the present, and then the stuff in the future, and then it ends. And it's still a very underwhelming ending. But both versions are crap because we didn't even get all of the cut footage, because there's all this stuff about these Victorian era Cenobites that were shown in the horror magazines that I had back in the day. That stuff's not in the movie. There was a scene where there was a party happening in the assembly cut, but you never see them get turned into Cenobites and all that. But it was just a bad idea for a movie. It didn't work. So luckily it ended there, but it didn't, because on home video we got 6 more movies. There's 10 total, I want to say. And then they rebooted it, and I love the reboot. But it also came with this hardbound book that's all essays about all of the movies. So, had to have this. Add it to the collection. If I can get this put back together correctly. So 2 out of the 3 movies ain't bad. Luckily, none of the direct-to-video POSs are in here. I'm going to cram this in between these and put them all in at the same time. That's going to suck. Damn it. But yeah, the direct-to-video movies are so bad. Henry Cavill's in one of them. It was like one of his first movies ever, and it's terrible. That's the one that has to do with the MMORPG based on Hellraiser, which is kind of funny because Henry Cavill was addicted to World of Warcraft, and he almost lost the role of Superman because he was playing it at the time. That makes me laugh. But the reboot is pretty fantastic, if you ask me. I should open this. It's falling apart already. God, it's already an hour, and I've only talked about that many movies? Shit. Next up is the Heroic Trio and Executioners double pack. These are martial arts superhero movies from Hong Kong. I saw both of these back when they were first released on VHS. They're pretty fantastic. Stars Michelle Yeoh, Maggie Chung, who's right there, who's in a lot of Jackie Chan movies, always playing his girlfriend, especially in Super Cop, and Anita Mui, who was a model turned actress, and she was the shop owner in Rumble in the Bronx. And these are fantastic. They're crazy martial arts movies. The characters are, I wouldn't say they're really superheroes. Like, they have abilities. How about that? Like, one is a super thief. One of them is really fast with a sword or really great with a sword, that kind of thing. But superhero might be pushing it. But Criterion put out this set. One of the discs is all extras. And it also came with a poster. Come on. Which is interesting because normally it's a double-sided one that has like the original theatrical poster and then their new one. This is the new one they made for this release, but the back is the essay about the making of the movie, which is kind of cool. Way to mix it up, Criterion. So had to get that. Those were some of my favorites from back in the day. And then one of my favorite movies from the 80s that nobody seemed to give a crap about when it was released theatrically, but when it came to like cable and VHS, everybody was watching this and thought it was one of the coolest things ever. And that's the original Highlander. I remember when it came out in theaters and everyone was making a big deal that Queen did the music for it, but then everyone was like, well, Queen also did the music for Flash Gordon. Look how that turned out, kind of thing. But I love Flash Gordon, so I was excited, but nobody wanted to see it in my family. It came and went super fast in the theaters, made no money. But when it came to home video, my parents rented it and we watched it, and we all loved it. This is another one of those Lionsgate steelbooks that changes imagery when you take the slip off. And all it really shows is the fight between the Kurgan and Connor at the end. The back does more of a hidden image thing where you can kind of see the Kurgan's eyes. But when you take the slip off, it's basically all him and all that. So it's about a race of immortals. Once you die, like you age normally, but if you die, you will come back and you will be unkillable unless your head gets cut off. I know that doesn't mean you're invincible or whatever, but the only way they can kill you from that point on is to behead you. And all these people who are like this eventually will get this urge to meet up and have a big fight to find who will be the last one standing. And that person is going to get what they call the prize. Well, one of the people is Connor McLeod, played by Christophe Lambert, and basically follows him to become the last one standing. And it's a really fun movie. I really like it. It's visually pretty cool. Great soundtrack. Action's pretty good. Here we have another Lionsgate Steelbook. This is the Hunger Games 4-movie collection. I know there are 5 movies technically now, but these are all the ones that deal with Katniss Everdeen. So another one of the ones where the image changes. So you got Katniss there in her outfit from the final movie, that black like stealth suit. But when you peel this off, you can see that the background is all on fire. And the back also has the credits for the movies. When you pull that off, you get a big image of Snow, the villain. So I read all the books in this series. My girlfriend that I was dating at the time when these movies came out was kind of into them. She wanted to see the movie, so I was like, okay, I'll go see the movie. I'll read the book too. So I read the first book, and I finished it just before the movie came out. The first movie came out. We went and saw it, and I really liked it. I really liked the book, and I liked the movie, even though it was more of a ripoff of Battle Royale, which was a Japanese movie that follows the same kind of beats. So in the world of this, there is a country. The country's called Panem. The capital is just all the rich and elite, and everyone else in the country just works to make sure that they are comfortable. So there's like a section of the country that deals with, wood. One of them deals with mining coal. One of them deals with fishing. One of them deals with farming. And all of those products are shipped to the capital so they can enjoy them. Everyone else gets scraps. And to keep the people in line, the capital has this Hunger Games thing that they do every year where they pull 2 young people, a girl and a boy, from every one of these districts. There's 12 districts. They pull a boy and a girl from each one, random lottery, to fight to the death to remind them that we are in charge and we could kill any of you at any time. And it's like this reminder of their failed rebellion that happened like decades earlier. Was it like 70 years earlier? And Katniss Everdeen, which is Jennifer Lawrence's character, starts a rebellion unintentionally by kind of fighting back and not doing what's expected of her during the games. And it's a good story. I like it. It just becomes a little fan fiction-y the closer you get to the end. So there was a series of 3 books. You had the Hunger Games, then you had Catching Fire, then you had Mockingjay. Catching Fire is essentially the first book all over again, just with a new set of characters. So I was kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Mockingjay is the one where it's like the big finale. The most is at stake. Crazy shit happens. One of the characters is unpredictable now. And the final chapter, like the epilogue, is the most fan fiction-y thing I think I've ever read in my life. And I was like, this is so stupid. Like, how dare you end this book that I've read all 3 of these within the space of like 2 weeks. I was like, I read the 3rd book in one night. I stayed up all night long and read it. I was so into the making to find out what happened that I was kind of angry. I was just like, that's the most fan fiction-y thing I think I've ever read in my life. This sucks. But the thing that made me laugh was everybody had an issue with, I'm going to spoil something here, Katniss's sister getting killed in the final movie, in the final book. And they're like, that served no purpose. Like, why did they kill her character off? She's like helping somebody, a bomb goes off next door and kills her. And my response every single time was I would look them dead in the eye. I'm like, war doesn't make sense. And they're kind of like, yeah, but I didn't want her to, well, tough. I'm like, you didn't write the book. You don't get to choose. I'm like, in what's going on in the book at that time, it makes perfect sense that there would like somebody would die just needlessly because that's what happens in war. The camera's acting funny. I like the movies. I don't like that they split the final book into 2 parts. I think that there was barely enough story. I mean, there was enough story for 1 movie, but to split it into 2, the first movie, the first part is so boring and drawn out, and nothing is going on in it that it's like hard to watch. Didn't stop it from making hundreds of millions of dollars. The second movie is better, but because of what they did with the first movie, that too just feels stretched to breaking point for another 2.5-hour movie. So I'm not a big fan of the second 2 movies. I do like the first 2, but outside of that, I'm like, eh. And now there's a prequel that they made, which is to me, if you ask. Next up, we have It, the 2 film collections. So this has It Part 1 and 2 in it. Another one where it's like one part was really good and one part I didn't like much at all. So I saw the original television miniseries of It back when it was first broadcast in the was it the early 90s, and it scared the shit out of me. You know, I wasn't really watching a lot of horror stuff back then. I think I just started getting into horror, but the fact that even it was a television movie and it scared me, I think is a pretty impressive thing because normally television movies don't do a damn thing. But it was really well made, really well acted, had a great cast. Tim Curry as Pennywise was absolute perfection. So when they announced that they were going to try to do the book correctly and split it into 2 parts, one deals with all the stuff that takes place in the past, and then the second movie would take place during the present, I was like, that could work. Andy Muschietti, who directed, what was it, Mama before, which was not a movie I was a big fan of, but I knew that he knew his way around horror. So I was like, okay, it sounds like a cool idea. Let's do it. I like the cast that he picked. And the first movie, which deals specifically with all the kids dealing with Pennywise, now instead of the 50s, it's the 80s, is rad as hell. It is so well made, so well acted. They went for it in a couple scenes, like the scene with the kid at the beginning with the storm grate. I didn't think they were going to do what they did, but they did it, and they did it right in your face. And I was like, okay, you got my attention. Let's do it. Movie ended up being absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love it. They did make changes from the book, but that's expected. You know, that book is like that thick. So you have to make a 2-hour movie out of that? Yeah, you're going to have to condense some things and eliminate some things. Now, one thing I'm really glad they did eliminate was the orgy, the kid orgy, which makes no freaking sense. But with that out of the way, I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and I could not wait for the second film. And then the second film dropped right before COVID hit, and I went and saw both movies with my pal Jeremiah that I do my podcast, The Movie Is Starting With. And we both loved the first one. We're watching the second one, and I want to say maybe halfway through the movie, there's a joke that they throw around in the second movie because one of the main characters is a screenwriter in the movie, and people joke around that he doesn't know how to end his screenplays, which is a joke that's always been thrown around about Stephen King, where he writes these great novels, but he never knows how to end them properly. So when we're watching the movie, about halfway through the movie, I looked at Jeremiah. I was like, I got a feeling that little joke about the movie not being able to end properly is going to be pretty prophetic. And sure enough, it was. It doesn't end, I think, satisfactorily. There's a lot of weird stuff that got introduced in the second half of the book. They kind of touch on it a little bit with the turtle. Come on, the big space turtle. And yeah, there's like people that are getting killed, and nobody seems to notice. A child gets killed in the Hall of Mirrors, and nobody cares. And what's his name? James McAvoy's character is the only person that was there, and he walks out of the Hall of Mirrors after the kid does, and the kid never comes out again. So like everyone's just kind of like, oh no, that guy's cool, let him go, he's good. It's like stuff, and it doesn't make any sense. It's like you could tell that they had written themselves into a couple of corners, and they just went like, yeah, whatever, we'll just keep moving on. But the cast is great. The people that they cast as the adult versions of the kid characters from the first movie perfectly cast. I really like that part of it, but the movie does not know how to end properly. It is kind of crappy. But I am looking forward to the TV show that they have coming out on Max. And then we have my box set of It Follows. There's going to be a sequel to this coming out. I think it's called They Follow. This is a horror thriller that I had heard people talking about, and I never really cared to see it. It didn't really sound all that great. People were just kind of like, yeah, what if evil was an STD? I was just like, wow. Pretentious. So I never bothered. Then one day I was at Half Price Books, and I saw the Steelbook of this, and it was like $4 or $5, and I was like, I'll just buy it, and if it sucks, I'll bring it back or I'll give it to somebody. And I watched it, and I was like, that was pretty freaking fantastic. I'm a dumbass. So yeah, the whole idea behind the movie is there is this like curse, and it's passed around like an STD. You have to have sex with somebody in order to pass this curse on, but does not mean you're completely out of the woods. And the curse is this being, you don't know what, they never explain what it is just is, will follow you everywhere you go. And eventually it will catch up with you and it will kill you. And if it does kill you, the curse bounces back to the person who gave it to you, and it will go after them. So the only way to potentially get away from this thing permanently is to just constantly have it being passed around. So there are so many people that it would have to go through to get to you again. It will never have a chance to in your lifetime, kind of thing. So this girl, played by Micah Monroe, is dating a guy. They have sex. She wakes up after the sex. She's tied up, and he's explaining the rules to her. He's like, you have to keep moving and find someone else to have sex with. Otherwise, you're going to die. And you better not die, because that means I'm going to die. You know, and if the whole thing is her trying to figure out what it is, why it's doing what it does, and why it is picking the people that it disguises itself as to try to get close to you. And it's really interesting. And the final person it disguises itself as is kind of interesting. And the way it ends is also really interesting. It's a really well-made, well-acted horror movie that I cannot wait to see the sequel. And this came from Viavision, I do believe. Second Sight. I think it's part of Viavision. Yeah, Second Sight has this really super hardcover case that it comes in. Comes with another hardcover book with like an essay on the making of the film, which I do think is pretty scary and effective. I really liked it. Also comes with some lobby cards. If I can get this off, probably not. You can kind of, I'll show you the one that's on top. Micah Monroe at the end when she's in the pool waiting for the creature to come after her. And the movie on 4K and a Blu-ray with extras. Highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's pretty fantastic. Like I said, I cannot wait for the sequel. Hopefully it comes out next year. Now that Micah Monroe's kind of got a big hit on her hands with Long Legs, I'm pretty sure that'll get rushed into production, or if it hasn't been made already. Next up, we have the Jack Ryan five film collection. This is all of the Tom Clancy books that were made into films. So you've got Hunt for Red October, Patriot Games, A Clear and Present Danger. Which one's that? The Sum of All Fears, and Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit. Out of all these movies, I don't really like one of them. But this was one of those things where I went to Best Buy. It was the first time I'd been to Best Buy in a long time. And I think it was when I was buying my television that I was wandering through the Blu-ray HD section, the 4Ks and all that, and saw Hunt for Red October and Clear and Present Danger on sale separately. So I was just like, oh, yeah, I would love to have those. So I picked those up, picked up a couple. I think I also picked up The Howling, and then I bought my television. Well, I got home, and I'm like looking up on Amazon. I'm like, are the other movies available on 4K? So I'm looking up Patriot Games and Some of All Fears. And then I see that there's a box set, and I was like, shit. I would rather just have them all in one place. So I took those two movies back and then ordered this off of Amazon. Hunt for Red October is one of my favorite films. It's a great submarine, political thriller. Absolutely fantastic soundtrack. Patriot Games is the one where I'm kind of like, on. It's basically just about a bunch of Irish terrorists being dickheads, and it's not that exciting. First one with Harrison Ford taking over for Alec Baldwin in the part of Jack Ryan, but not my favorite. I think it's kind of boring. But the one that followed, A Clear and Present Danger, is the most political out of them all, and has probably the least amount of action, but I think is the most interesting and well-made of them all. And I ended up seeing that in the theater, I think, 3 times, and drive-in at least once for free when I found out my little workaround to not having to pay. But absolutely love that one. Absolutely love it. And then they kind of went back and did a prequel with Some of All Fears, and they cast Ben Affleck as Jack Ryan in that. He's great in the part too. It has a really horrific bomb scene in it, but another really good movie, really well made. And then there's Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit. I think it was just supposed to be called Jack Ryan, but because of John Carter, the Disney science fiction movie that came out right before it, bombing because the name, everyone was like, who's John Carter? They figured no one's going to know who Jack Ryan is unless you're a fan of Tom Clancy. So let's put this subtitle on to make it sound mysterious. So they put Shadow Recruit on there, even though that has nothing to do with anything. And it's another prequel about when Jack Ryan first got recruited by the CIA and kind of goes on a mission to take out was it a Nazi group, I do believe? That's who the villain played by? What's his freaking name? Kenneth Branagh plays the villain in it. Keira Knightley's in it also. Chris Pine ends up playing him in that one. And that one's pretty good too. Kenneth Branagh directed it as well. So I needed to have that since I'm a fan. 4 out of 5 ain't bad. That hardcover book is thick with 3 C's, bro. What's up, Peter? And then we have these 2 things. One of my favorite movies of all time. Had to get this, and that is Jaws, with the lenticular cover and then munching on his title. Absolutely love this movie. Saw it in 3D like 2 years ago, I want to say. They did like a limited release for like 1 week in 3D, and it was another one of those movies where I'm like, not designed to be in 3D. Let's see how this works. And it worked freaking fantastic. I wish we got a version of that on home video in 3D. I would have lost my shit. Absolutely love it. Based on a book by Peter Benchley, the first official blockbuster. Summer was normally a dead time for movies because nobody wanted to go out or stay indoors. Like everyone was expected to be outside fucking around during the summer. No one wants to sit in a theater watching a movie during the summer until Jaws hit. The movie made so much money. All of a sudden, summer was the season because normally it was like Christmas time was the big money-making season. Nope. Summer became the official new money-making season. And then Star Wars solidified it a couple years later. But yeah, absolutely my favorite movie based on or about a shark killing people. Also helped to create my fear of the ocean and sharks. Thank you. But absolutely love everything about it. It's well made, well acted, well directed. Perfect, almost like a perfect movie if you ask me. And then we have the box set that has the sequels. The 3 movie collection. So this is Jaws 2, Jaws 3D, and Jaws the Revenge. I talked about this a couple months ago in the recent pickups stream. Jaws 2 is not nearly as good as the first one, but it definitely has the feel of the first one. I think they use the same film stock. All the same people that worked on the first movie behind the scenes worked on this one as well. So it feels connected to the first movie, even though it's like the story is not nearly as good as the first one. So that one is about like this shark that is killing just random people off the shore of this like resort town in New York. And here, same thing kind of happens, but he's targeted. The new shark has targeted a bunch of teenagers who have gone out like day sailing and attacks all the boats. The boats end up, capsizing and flipping over. So the kids tie the boats together and they're trying to survive on the ocean while this shark is like circling them like a serial killer. They do certain things to make the shark stand out in this one, like burning half of its face off early in the movie. So it has like this scary look to it. And it's also a little bit bigger than the one in the first movie. Also, a lot of deleted footage from the second movie that they put in the television movie, which I remember the first version I saw of the movie was the television version, where you get to see the helicopter pilot that tried to rescue the kids get killed by the shark. Originally, just the shark pulls the helicopter underwater, and that's all you see. But in the television version, you actually see the shark like break into the helicopter and eat the guy, missing half of its face. But same composer, John Williams, did the music for both the first one and the second one. Different director, but like I said, they feel connected. Although half the cast didn't come back. Obviously, one of them died in the first movie. Richard Dreyfuss didn't want to come back because he was making Close Encounters of the Third Kind of Spielberg. Only person that came back was Roy Scheider, and then he wanted to get out of his contract so badly he tried to act like he was insane on set so they would let him go, and they were just kind of like, no, we paid you, you're going to do this, and we'll let you out of your contract for the other movies for Universal if you finish this one. So he was like, all right, fine. But it's fine. Then there's the third one, which is the first one I saw. I saw that in the drive-in. Parents took us to see it because my dad was like dying to see it. And we saw it in 3D. And that's one of those movies that should never have been rated PG. There was no PG-13 rating in 1983 when it came out. But if you would ask me nowadays, I would definitely give it an R rating. It is graphic and gory as all hell. The shark in it is basically a small megalodon. It's like 35, 40 feet long. It is gigantic. It has a mouth wide enough to fit somebody in and crush the person in the mouth with its throat without the teeth ever touching it. I'm pretty sure I almost peed myself. But like the gags in 3D are gory as hell. Like the first big shark attack in the movie is this dude that's trying to fix an underwater gate to SeaWorld. And you see his severed arm with the bone and everything coming right at your face. It is like, was one of those moments where I was like, oh my God. And then later on, they show the rest of that dude's body show up, and it has been mauled beyond belief, popping up in a window in 3D. And then they uncover it. They have it like on a table, like a slab. And these people are like, well, I want to see what the body looks like. And they pull the cover off, and its face is filling the entire screen in 3D. And it is like, skin has been ripped off, and it's like muscle underneath, eyeball hanging out kind of shit, and there's crabs and stuff coming out of its mouth in 3D in your face. And that was probably the point where I almost pooped my pants, but ended up liking it so much that ended up becoming obsessed with these movies. So I went back and watched the other two. Luckily, part 2 was on TV like the next day, so I watched that, and then eventually watched the first one and became a fan of the films, even though they scared the hell out of me. So when Jaws the Revenge, the fourth movie, came out theatrically, I talked my parents, my mom, my dad didn't give a shit. I talked my mom into taking me and my brother to see it at the drive-in, and that was where I was like, okay, now this is stupid. So they make it look like the shark in this one is trying to kill the rest of the Brody family from the other movies for reasons. They kind of make it feel like it's related to the shark from the first movie, like it's like one of his offspring or something, and it's like, you killed my granddaddy, I'm going to kill you, kind of bullshit. But what was really going on is in the novelization, and they cut this all out of the movie because they thought it was going to be stupid. But Mike Brody, the oldest son from Roy Scheider's character, is working in the Bahamas on his master's or his PhD or whatever, collecting conch shells, whatever. Okay, and he pissed off a local witch doctor, and the witch doctor puts a curse on his family, and the curse manifests itself in the form of a shark. And it starts going after all the family members. So in the beginning, it kills his younger brother, and then makes a play for him later on in the movie, and then goes after the mother. And it is so dumb and so badly made. You can see the shark in certain scenes. You can see that it's made out of rubber because its mouth is opening and closing, but its nose is going like this, Like it's just bouncing because it doesn't have anything connecting it to the mechanisms in the face. So its mouth is opening, its nose is going. Blah, 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 blah. So it's like I was going like this. There's a couple of scenes where you can see the track that the shark is moving on. You know, that it's like mounted on like a railroad track, and they're moving it back and forth. You can see it in the shot. There's one point where it's like swimming and it kind of moves to the side too far, and you can see the hole that's been cut in its side that has the armature holding it up and all that. It looks like the worst. And then I saw the actual shark prop that they used in person at the Museum of Science and Industry here in Chicago. They had like a movie prop display or like an exhibition. They had the werewolf from American Werewolf in London. They had the Mega Maid model from Spaceballs. They had the Alien Queen and the Power Loader from Aliens, and they had the shark from Jaws of Revenge. And it was on. It was operating and it was moving around. And I was like, "Yep, you can tell that thing is like poorly made because even its nose was doing this when it was moving around." And it has the worst ending. The ways they've killed the shark in the other 3 movies, I always thought were kind of cool. In this one, they decided to change it for home video. In the theatrical cut that I saw in the drive-in, the main characters are shocking the shark with this thing that they threw down its throat. And it also had ripped I don't know what it's called, that plank that sticks out the front of a boat. They had kind of ripped the front of it off, and now it has like this sharp point to it. So the main characters are like shocking the shark, and it keeps on popping out of the water and roaring like a lion to the point where it pops out of the water and the front of that boat rams right into its throat. And there's a shot of the shark thrashing around like close up with its head back like this, and blood is just shooting out of the sides of its mouth. And you see that that front of the boat came out the back of its head, and its weight rips the front of the boat off and sinks to the bottom of the ocean. And that was the one I saw in the theater. So when we rented it, because my dad wanted to see it, now the movie had a completely different ending. Now, one of the characters that died to put that thing in the shark's throat that was shocking it, he's now alive again for some reason. So the movie that only had a body count of 3 now has a body count of 2. But now, when the front of the boat rams into the shark's throat, you see it hit, and then its head explodes. And it's not like a real fancy effect. It's like a toy shark and a toy boat sitting in a bathtub that someone is filming with a handy cam, and they put a black cat in its mouth and blew it up. And it looks like a toy blowing up. And if you freeze frame it, you can totally see that it is a toy. And that is still the official ending of the movie now. It's what's on here. You can watch the original ending with the boat death in the extras, but you cannot watch it with the movie. And it makes no sense. It is so dumb. I don't understand. But that movie's a piece of flaming shit. So why do I care? I don't. That's probably my least watched movie in the series. I probably watch Jaws 1 and 3 the most. 2 is good too, but like 3, I have like it's like a nostalgia thing with me. Like that's the first one I saw. It's the one that scared the shit out of me. So I watched that one probably the most other than the first one. So last week I talked about the Essentials collection from Universal. That was the Big Lebowski set that I have. Well, I didn't realize it was like a set of things because I ordered that off of Amazon. But then I guess that Universal decided to expand that collection, and now you can only get them on the Groove website, which is the Universal Direct website. And I was watching this one YouTuber who I don't subscribe to anymore. What was it? Serial at Midnight. He was talking. He bought all the movies in this collection, this Essentials collection. And I was like, I actually want a few of those. I don't want all of them, but I want a few. So I went and ordered them off of the website, and one of them was Jurassic Park. I'm not sure if I like this new artwork. It's a little too busy. I like just the simplicity of the Jurassic Park logo and all that, but fantastic movie. Another one that, summer movies, it's the time. So I got edition 1909 out of 5,000. Like summer movie blockbusters are a thing. When this movie came out, the year that I graduated high school, I had my graduation party one day, which is a Saturday. And then Sunday, I went and saw it in the theater because it had just opened on Friday. So I had my graduation on Friday that it opened. Saturday, I had my party, so I couldn't go see it then. Next day, me and a bunch of my friends went and saw it on Sunday, and we loved it to the point where I think I saw this like 3 or 4 times in the theater. And a year after it opened, it was still playing in a couple of the theaters by me in the burbs, which was crazy. Comes with a bunch of lobby cards. Comes with a booklet that's mostly just a bunch of behind-the-scenes photos and sketches and whatnot. And just like The Big Lebowski, it comes with a film cell. And I'll see if you can see it. It's the T-Rex at the very end of the movie when it roars after killing the raptors in the lobby, and that banner that says "When dinosaurs ruled the earth" floats past it. There you can kind of see it better. That's what the film cell is, which is kind of awesome. Definitely my favorite movie in the entire series. I don't really like any of them outside of the first one. I don't like any of the Jurassic World movies. I just saw photos today of the newest one that they're coming out with Scarlett Johansson in it. And I was just kind of like, do we really need to keep making these movies? Yeah, they keep making all this money, but do we really need them? No. The first one was where it was at. The book for the sequel, or the sequel novel, I hear is better than the movie. I did not like the movie at all. So what's up, Peter? How's it going? Who's in the chat, by the way? I see there's 3 watching. Retro Coop, you still here? Next up, we have the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I hear that Peter Jackson kind of went crazy and recolor-timed these so that they look more like the Hobbit films, the Hobbit trilogy, which I'm not a fan of. But I really don't care. Same way the book did. Yeah, Hammond died. They kind of made it vague if... what's his name died? Jeff Goldblum's character. But I really wanted that action scene where Grant was in that raft on the water and the T-Rex was chasing him on the shore. But yeah, Hammond died. All the compies killed him when he was trying to climb up that hill. That would have been cool. I wish they put that stuff in the sequel, but they didn't. Yeah, Ian Malcolm. Yeah, they kind of left it vague if he died or not. But then he shows up in the sequel book. You look like it's not. Saw all of these in the theater opening weekend. Saw the first one once. Saw the second one once. Did not like the second one at all. I did not like The Two Towers. I don't know why I didn't like it. I remember I explained it to people when they would be like, how can you not like that movie? That's like the best one. I'm like, I felt like I was missing information. In the first movie, in Fellowship of the Ring, you see the orcs, and all they really have are swords. And all of a sudden, they have like these devil dog things they're riding on, and these dragons that are spitting acid and shit. You haven't stayed awake through a Lord? Dude, they are so good. At least these are. I don't like the Hobbit ones. I was just kind of like, I feel like I'm missing information. Like, they never told you like anything about the bad guys and like how they're doing these things. I'm like, where are they getting all this shit from? Like, what is this? And I don't know what I was thinking, but I watched it again when it came out at home video. I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. Then Return of the King. When saw that opening weekend, I loved Return of the King so much, all 5 endings and all. I ended up seeing that like 3 times, even though it's like a super long freaking movie. I liked it that much. And then I saw the extended cuts of the 3 films, and now is when like watching them all back to back is kind of necessary. But part 2 now is way better with all that extra stuff mixed into it. But fantastic movies. It's like a feat of filmmaking that these got made for $100 million each, especially when you see the third movie, and that's like, that was made for $100 million. What the hell? How did that happen? Absolutely nuts. I absolutely love these 3 films, but the Hobbit movies can eat a dick. I could not stand the first Hobbit movie. Went and saw it with my ex and her family, her mom and her dad. And her dad was such a huge Lord of the Rings, like Tolkien fan, that he told me that he used to write Elvish poetry, like in the Elvish from these novels in college. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Now, like, my back of my mind, I'm going, nerd. And then the movie ended, and my girlfriend and her dad were going on how great they thought this movie was. And then here's me on the other side going like, I fell asleep 3 fucking times. So like, I'm letting them talk. I'm just like, I'm not gonna say anything. Like, let them have their moment. Like, they clearly enjoyed it. I'll let them have it. You know, that's them. But then the dad turns to me and he's like, so what did you think? And I'm not gonna lie, I was like, I thought that sucked. He's like, Like all the color drained from his face. What? Like, that was terrible. I'm like, I couldn't figure out if it wanted to be a comedy or a horror movie. I'm like, 1 minute, yeah, people like making poop jokes, and then the next minute, someone's getting completely disemboweled, and we're watching their guts spill out. I'm like, couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Is it supposed to be serious or funny, or the next thing you know, it's a musical? I'm like, what's going on? And I was like, Gandalf's a fucking dick. Like, all of a sudden, Gandalf is like, hey guys, I'm gonna put you in this super dangerous situation. Peace out, pew! And he like runs away. And then they're all about to die, and then he pops back up at the last second, like, here to save y'all. And like he does that 3 times in the movie. And I was like, Gandalf's a fucking dick. He's a dick. Could not stand that movie. To the point where I didn't watch the other 2 Hobbit movies. I still don't care to. And I still haven't watched the Rings of Power series. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. What was in the book? Somebody's texting me. Yeah, what are you talking about, Peter? But yeah, didn't even watch the other 2, and I still haven't watched Rings of Power on Amazon because I don't like those movies at all. The musical part, there are parts where people are said to be singing in the book because it's a kid's book. The Hobbit is a kid's book. So yeah, there's part where there's like these rhymes that are happening in the book, and I guess they interpreted them as songs in the movie. But I don't remember people getting disemboweled and stuff in the book. It's just dumb. It's so bad. I could not stand it. Anyway, next up we have Lost Highway, which is from God damn it, I can't remember his name. David Lynch, the guy who directed the Dune movie that everybody hates, and Blue Velvet, which is one of my favorites. This one is one that I think is kind of an acquired taste. So the soundtrack is what got my attention for this first. The soundtrack dropped, and it had a brand new song from Nine Inch Nails. It had a brand new song from David Bowie. This is when David Bowie was in his industrial phase. It had like Rammstein on it, or Rammstein. It had Rammstein, Marilyn Manson. Like, it was a kick. Smashing Pumpkins had like a new track exclusive for this soundtrack. And they were playing the video for The Perfect Drug, the new Nine Inch Nails song on MTV. And I was like, that is a rad-ass video. I need to see this movie. Turned out it was only playing at like 2 theaters nearby because it's considered an art house film. So me and a friend went and drove out, like, I don't know, it was like 45 minutes to an hour away from where we live to go and see it. And it blew my freaking mind. It's like a puzzle. I've said this plenty of times. It's like a puzzle. The first time you watch it, it's not going to make a lick of sense. It's like it seems like a bunch of random things and random events just kind of strung together. And in the end, you kind of have an idea of what it's supposed to be about, but not 100% there yet. So I went and saw it again, like the week later, and I brought more people with me. I brought my brother and a couple of his friends. They freaking hated it. But me and my buddy that I went and saw with were like, oh, that's what's going on. Okay, now. So it's like one of those movies you need to watch twice in order to get the full gist of what's going on. So, like, for an example, it's Bill Pullman and Patricia Arquette. They're a married couple. He's a jazz musician, thinks his wife is cheating, keeps on getting visited by this dude with no eyebrows that kind of looks like the devil, telling him like all these weird cryptic messages. And then one day he travels back in time and he's his younger self, but he's dating someone who looks exactly like his wife. And all this other weird stuff is happening. There's gangsters involved and all this other kind. Richard Pryor's in it. And it like I said, it's weird stream of thought type of thing, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense until you watch it again after you know what's going to happen. And then it's like, oh, okay, that fits in here. And like I said, it's a puzzle. Absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite Lynch movies. And then we have these. Like, you want to talk about movies that I never thought in a million years would ever get a 4K restoration? It's this, or these two. Maniac Cop 2 and Maniac Cop 3. These are like generic slashers. Well, the second one, so the first Maniac Cop is like a exploitation horror movie kind of. So there was this cop, was his name Cordell, who was like way too violent for his own good, and a bunch of his fellow cops turned against him and thought they had kind of put him down, but that's not the case. He kind of like faked his death and kind of went away for a while and then came back for vengeance like years later. His face is all screwed up from the attempt that was made against him, but all that. It's a it's like an exploitation, like horror movie, thriller. I wouldn't even really call it a horror movie. But at the end of that movie, that character Cordell dies. So now we got Zombie Cordell in part 2, and this one was made with a very large budget. Where the first one I think cost like $500,000 to make. This one cost like $10 million or something, and was really well reviewed and had gone to like all these horror movie conventions and all that, and was like getting rave reviews from there. The critics actually really liked it, but then for some reason it got like the box office, like it never got fully released like it was supposed to. Like for some reason, like it was supposed to be like a full wide release, and it only got like 30 theaters for some reason. I don't know if the company went bankrupt or there was something going on with the distributor being shady or whatever, but like it was not playing anywhere, so nobody saw it that I knew of. On home video is another thing, and it ended up being a pretty cool thing, pretty cool movie. It's still more like a horror action movie than anything else. There's a lot of action scenes in it. Claudia Christian, who was on Babylon 5, is in it, and I guess she was like a real diva on set. She found out she was pregnant while she was making the movie, but she didn't tell anybody that she was pregnant. So like all of a sudden there's a stunt where she's tied to the outside of a car, like she's been handcuffed to the wheel of a car, but she's outside of the car, so her arm is in the window and she's being dragged, and she was expected to do the stunt, and she didn't tell anybody that she was pregnant while she was doing it. It's really kind of dumb. But this one I can see getting a 4K. It's actually pretty cool. The third one went direct to video, and it's just like, I want an undead bride kind of thing now, and it's not great. It's kind of stupid, but it's fun. It's just a silly horror movie. This is the one I'm surprised got a 4K release, but it did. And then we have this. Yes. We have the Matrix. What do they call it? The 4-film Deja Vu collection. So this has The Matrix, Reloaded, Revolutions, and Resurrections. So I like 3.5 of these movies. Yeah, she didn't tell anybody, and then she ended up going to the hospital because something happened, and that's when she was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm pregnant. The reason she didn't say anything was because the insurance company would never have hired her for this part if they found out she was pregnant. So she got in like big trouble. No, it does not have the Animatrix, sadly. But the Animatrix is on Max, and I can watch it there. I love these movies. Well, the first 3. The original trilogy, I think, is a perfect trilogy. I know a lot of people hate these sequels. I think if you watch them all back to back, I think they make a perfect trilogy. There are some ideas that were dumb that were introduced. I give the Wachowskis credit that they came up with a lot of like really cool stuff to introduce in the sequels. The problem was we didn't need to see all of that or hear all of it. Like the whole thing about like everything you hear about ghosts and vampires and werewolves are actually like programs in the Matrix doing something they're not supposed to be doing, and that's what they've been interpreted as. So like we get to see those twins who are the ghosts, and the fact that they can actually like phase in and out of things, is what make people call them ghosts. Well, like the vampire thing is what's her name? Persephone? Monica Bellucci's character. She like suckles energy off of people. There's a scene where she wants to kiss Keanu Reeves' character in the second movie, and when she kisses him, you can hear like it sounds like a modem sound going off, and it's like she wanted him to kiss her as if he loved her the way he loves Trinity, and she like suckles that energy off of him. And I was like, that's a vampire thing, I guess. But then, do we really need all that kind of stuff? No, it just overly complicates things, and it doesn't really matter much in the grand scheme of things anyway. Just focus on the main things and stop giving us all these distractions. That's my issue. Outside of that, great action, great soundtrack, acting is on point. Keanu Reeves, even though he does kind of deadpan it a lot, that kind of works for this character. Like I love the fights, I love the action scenes, the story is great. It's got the philosophical stuff and the silly comic book stuff. Definitely steals a lot from anime. But I think it's fantastic. And where it goes in the third movie at the end, I was like, yes, that is a fully satisfying conclusion. There's a piece, but is it going to last? That's the whole thing. I'm like, yeah, that's great. So we got this like 20-some year later sequel, Resurrections, which I think had the best of intentions. I mean, the only reason that Lana Wachowski wanted to make it was Warner Brothers is like, look, we're going to make a sequel to that trilogy, whether you are involved or not. So you can either be on a team or you can sit it out because we own the rights to it. You have no say-so. So Lana was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. The ideas that she came up with were not great. She had some cool ideas that I love that like continue the lore of the world. Since what happened in the end of the third movie, like what's happened in the world is great. I love all that stuff. But like the fights suck. Like the thing that everybody remembers about these movies are like the fights. The fights suck. The new version of Bullet Time sucks. The plot kind of sucks. All the stuff that deals with Keanu Reeves or like Neo and Trinity kind of refining each other, I really like that. I like that they brought them back to life and like have them disguised as other people in the Matrix to kind of keep them apart is also really kind of cool. But it's just that the plot and throwing all these other characters in there, they did not need to bring back Agent Smith. They didn't need to bring back the Merovingian for that one scene where he's cursing at everybody in French for no reason. You know, all that kind of stuff. They did not need to bring any of these characters back. They should have just kept it focused on Neo and Trinity and like the new band of people that they are working with, and that would have been great. But they had all this extra crap and we don't need. So that bugs me. It does end in a cool place, and I was pretty sure we were going to get another movie after that, but it bombed. So it's probably not going to happen. So, But I'm not sad we got the fourth movie, but I understand why people don't like it. Anyway, next up we have The Mist. It's the other Stephen King. This is another one of the Lionsgate steel books where you pull the slip off and you have a hidden image revealed, which is the main characters. And on the back, it kind of does that also, where it just looks like your typical, rear of artwork, but you pull this off and you've got more characters that are stuck in the store. So based on a short story by Stephen King about this like mist, there's things in the mist, kind of like where there's things in the fog. So it's like an invasion from another dimension. And you can't trust what's in the mist. You can't go out there because you never know if you're going to get attacked or not. And a bunch of people are trapped inside a grocery store together while this is all going on outside. And it's more about how shitty we become when put under stress than the things that are hiding outside that are obviously out to kill us. It's all about the people, going kind of crazy and turning on each other is where the horror lies, which is what I love. And I think it has one of the greatest endings to a film ever. I remember when we saw this in the theater and the ending happened. My mom has a thing about happy endings in movies. If a movie does not have a happy ending, it is a terrible movie. So when this movie ended, she stood up and went, "That was bullshit." Like out loud, screamed it. "That was bullshit." And me and my brother and his, at the time, girlfriend were walking out of the theater kind of like mulling over what just happened. And my brother's girlfriend goes, "Moral of the story is, wait 5 minutes." And that was all she said. But I love it. I think it's a fantastic movie. I think it has a ballsy ending. I give it total props for that. Next up, we have the Mummy Ultimate Trilogy. So this has the Brendan Fraser Mummy films. Your Mom's a Tough Crowd. She has done that multiple times. I remember we went and saw Hurt Locker, the one that won the Oscar 10 years ago or whatever. And that does not have a happy ending either. My mom, when it was over, she's like, "That was the worst fucking ending." Screaming it out loud in this theater that was packed full of people. I know she said that when she went and saw Message in a Bottle with a bunch of her friends, and the way that kind of had an unhappy ending, she was like, she stood up and went, "Fuck this movie." And when she went and saw The English Patient with a bunch of her friends, I guess she was so bored. It wasn't the ending that bothered her. It was just the movie was so boring. I guess when the movie ended, her friends told me that my mom stood up and went like, "I felt like I was in the desert for 3 fucking days." The Hurt Locker was 15 years ago. God damn it, I'm old. Anyway, The Mummy. Yeah, these are the Brendan Fraser Mummy films. So it's The Mummy, Mummy Returns, and The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. The only two that I give a shit about are The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. I do not like the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Not only did Rachel Weisz not come back to play Evie again, I have nothing against Maria. What's his name? Maria Bello. is that her name? Maria Bello, who took her place. She is so out of place in this movie. It is like unreal. The guy they cast as the adult version of Evie and I can't remember his fucking character's name now. Rick O'Connell's kid from the second movie, the adult version. The guy is 3 years younger than Brendan Fraser is. And it's really obvious too. It was directed by the guy who made the first Fast and the Furious, Triple X, Stealth, and Stealth bombed so hard that he thought this was going to be like his big comeback movie, and it bombed hard too. So his career kind of ended with that. And then he made not a Long Came a Spider. Alex Cross, the Along Came a Spider prequel with Tyler Perry in it, and that bombed too, and his career was over after that too. First two movies are super fun. I remember we went and saw the first Mummy on a lark. I really didn't have any interest in it, even though I liked the director, because the movie he made previous to The Mummy was Deep Rising, and I loved it. So that was the only reason I was going to see it. I'm like, Dead Rising was pretty cool. Let's go see The Mummy. So me and my brother went and saw it. And it was like either the week before or the week after Phantom Menace opened. And we were surprised how packed the theater was for like an afternoon show that we went to. And when it was over, like everybody walked out of that theater with a smile on their face. And I was like, I think this is going to be a hit. Like that was a real like crowd, like quote unquote crowd pleaser. My brother's like, I agree. And sure enough, it was like the big surprise hit of the summer of 1999. And then of course there's a sequel announced. And while the sequel I don't think is nearly as good as the first one, it's fun too. It just added in a bunch of stuff that all of a sudden became popular during that summer, like The Matrix with the fight scenes and the overuse of CGI with Phantom Menace. So the second movie is basically like CGI overload and a really shitty looking CGI version of The Rock. And all of a sudden there's like martial arts in ancient Egypt. But it was still fun. I really enjoyed it. But the third movie is the pits. So had to have this. And this thing is heavy too. I think it has magnets holding it together. And it has like 2 or 3 discs for each movie. The only problem is I do not like these ones that are like cardboard slips. I'm always afraid I'm going to scratch the shit out of the discs when you pull them in and out. But got this used at the Exchange, I want to say, down the street. Yeah, the first 2 Mummy films are fun. Like I'll back-to-back those any day of the week. Like the way Jaws 1 and 2 feels, like where they feel connected. The first 2, because they're made by the same guy, Stephen Sommers, they feel connected. They feel great watching them as a like a 2-parter. But then that third one is just like, what the hell? And the biggest thing that pissed me off about that third one, it stars Jet Li and Michelle Yeoh as major characters. Those 2 are 2 of the biggest stars in Hong Kong martial arts films. They have never starred in a movie together in Hong Kong. This is the first time they were in the same movie together, and they did not have them fight. And I was like, there's like a scene where they look like they're going to fight, and they kind of slap each other a couple of times, and it's over, and I went, fuck this movie. Fuck it dead. It's dead to me. Fuck it right in the ear. Like, no, I'm done. Biggest missed opportunity in Hollywood. Next up is not a good movie at all, and that is Navy SEALs. I got this on sale on the Vinegar Syndrome website. I went there to buy a couple of other movies, and then this one was there, and it was like the brand new movie they'd announced, and they already were discounting it. I don't remember what the sale was about. I think it was just like I think it was the halfway to Black Friday sale that they do every year. And I was like, I remember liking that kind of liking that as a kid. You know, it'll be fun to watch on the podcast if we can get someone to watch it with us. So I'll just buy it. You know, it wasn't that bad. It was like $20-some. So sure enough, it shows up. One of my friends shows up to record the podcast with us. He didn't really have a plan of what movie we were going to watch. He was just kind of like, when we get to your house, like the 3 of us will pick something. And then he sees that I had bought Navy SEALs and goes, let's watch Navy SEALs. I remember that being a huge piece of shit. I was like, I remember differently, but that was me. But I have not seen it since it came out on home video, which was like 1990, 91. I'm like, let's watch it and see what it's all about, because I don't remember anything about it. And sure enough, I was like, wow, that was a huge flaming piece of shit. It has a rad slipcover which makes sense if you've seen the movie. And then stars Charlie Sheen and Michael Biehn and Joanne Whalley-Kilmer in a thankless part. I don't know why she agreed to be in the movie. And then I remember asking Jason, who was the guest that day, I'm like, what's with this whole golf course thing? And he's like, you don't remember that? I'm like, no, I don't remember it at all. He goes, you know how Top Gun had the volleyball scene? He's like, yeah. Like, well, this movie is Top Gun with Navy SEALs, and they have a golfing scene. I'm like, oh, okay. Are they topless? Are they sweating like crazy? And it also has a booklet with like an essay about the making of the movie. This was considered a huge bomb when it came out. It was a really expensive movie to make. Charlie Sheen was like the new it boy because of Platoon and all that. So they were banking on him, being a big box office draw. The director that made this, I remember Jason said something like he made a couple of really big movies in the late 80s. Maybe even in the early 80s. Louis Teague, I think is his name. And it was just a massive, massive bomb. Like, this made no money. And it is, you watch it, it is really badly made, really badly acted. Charlie Sheen's character is supposed to be the lead, and he is so unlikable. All he does in this movie is get his teammates killed because he's so dumb. The whole movie is like, I'm going to go over here. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, no, what's his name died? Shit. I'm going to go hide over here. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, what's his name died? Because what? And, like, nobody seems to care. Although that shot right there is better than anything that's actually in the movie. The bad guys aren't even developed. They kind of like one bad guy kind of shows up at the beginning, and he's kind of like, there's like a close up of him. It's like, remember this shot because you're not going to get anything else until the end. And then he shows up at the very end and gets killed, and the movie's over. It's like, what? He had a hard time enjoying Charlie. I like some of his movies, like The Chase. You ever see The Chase? That movie is so funny. Men at Work is hysterically funny. But yeah, everything he did since the breakdown was like, nah, no. This one I have on my box set shelf because it is like a super wide case and it takes up way too much space. That is Passengers. This is a movie that stars Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, where they're passengers on this like ship that's taking them to another planet, and everyone on the ship is supposed to be in suspended animation, but for some reason Chris Pratt's hibernation chamber malfunctions and he wakes up with still like 100 years to go on the trip, and he is awake for so long that he starts to kind of go crazy, and he wakes up somebody else to keep him company, and that's this girl that he kind of fell in love with watching videos of her while he was awake. And obviously they're gonna not like each other at first, and they kind of start to fall for each other. Then she finds out that he woke her up and basically sentenced her to death because the ship's never going to get to where it needs to be in their lifetime. And then they make up because they have to work together at the end. It's very typical, and it's kind of gross. Chris Pratt plays kind of a shitty character, and he does a really shitty thing. But you have to wonder, if you're in that situation, would you do that same thing too? If you're going to like dying of loneliness, you have no one to talk to. It's good. I like it. It's just like some of it is a little icky. But this is also the 3D version of the movie. So when I bought this off of Amazon, I did not realize that it was the 3D version at all. I was just kind of like, oh, I'm buying the Blu-ray, and if I eventually get a 4K player, I have a 4K to watch. And it shows up and has the 3D Blu-ray in it, and I didn't even know this movie was released theatrically in 3D. Saw this opening day. It opened on Christmas Day, and I was in California visiting my brother, and we're talking about what we're going to do on Christmas Day. So the decision was made, me, my brother, his girlfriend at the time, and my mom were going to go see a movie, and this is what we ended up settling on. And I think we all liked it in varying degrees. I think it's still a good movie. It's just like that choice, that scene where he makes the choice to wake Jennifer Lawrence up is like really kind of like gross. Yeah, it is heartbreaking. It's like he basically sentenced her to death. Picked this one up not too long ago. That is the Planet of the Apes trilogy. It's not a trilogy anymore, so they should retitle this to the Planet of the Apes, the Caesar trilogy, which is what I would have done, because the fourth movie has nothing to do with Caesar anymore because Caesar doesn't exist in that movie. He's dead. But this is the first three of the reboot Planet of the Apes movies that are way better than they have any right to be. I had disliked the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes remake so much that when they announced they were going to try to reboot it again, I was like, nope. Fool me once, whatever. You're not going to fool me again. But my girlfriend at the time, who was a huge animal lover, was like, I kind of want to go see that. And I had convinced her to go to see a couple movies that she didn't want to go see, but she ended up liking. So I was like, well, okay, since, I've talked you into going to see movies that you weren't interested in, I'll go see this one too. Don't expect me to like it though. And when it was over, I was like, the first one, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I was like, that was actually really good. Like, surprised the hell out of me how much I liked it. And the special effects are fantastic. The whole motion capture for the apes with Andy Serkis playing Caesar, it's great. So that when the other two movies came out, I was not going to pass those up. So I went and saw each of them in the theater as well, and each of them, I think, got better. Like Rise is a good starting point. It sets everything up with the disease that's going to eventually wipe out humanity. Dawn is kind of the in-between point, and War is like in the final days when like humanity is kind of on its last legs. And they're fantastic. I think they're all really good movies. Like I said, they get better and better. Kingdom, the newest one, not a fan. Without Caesar, I don't see the point. Next up, we have Police Story 3 Super Cop. This is the movie that really got me into Jackie Chan action movies from Hong Kong. So Mortal Kombat, the first Mortal Kombat movie came out in 95. That was my like awakening to martial arts films. I was like, I've seen martial arts films before. I have never seen one like that. That is super cool. What else is out there that's like that was my way of thinking. Ended up seeing that Deadliest Art thing that I kept on talking about on my channel. I've talked about it a lot recently. It was a VHS tape we had at the store that was always being rented, and all it really was the best of fight scenes from martial arts movies for like I want to say mid 70s to the mid 90s. Or I think it actually came out in the early 90s, so it must have been like the early 70s to the end of the 80s. And it was just a bunch of fight scenes like strung together from other movies, and that's all it really was. And it rented all the time, so I watched that, and I was like, there's a lot of cool stuff out there that I'm missing. And they talk a lot about Jackie Chan stuff in that movie. So ended up kind of going into the backlog, and then Rumble in the Bronx comes out, and I'm like, holy shit. Not only was that a good kung fu movie, that was just a good action movie, kind of comedy also. I wonder what else. And then Super Cop comes out, and I was like over the moon when I saw that. But we got an edited version of the movie from the Weinsteins. Harvey Scissorfingers can't keep his freaking mitts off anything that comes his way. So he cut a bunch of the movie out, so it's just like this nonstop action stream. There's nothing really going on else other than action. This is the original Hong Kong cut of the movie, and it has all the plot mixed back in. There's a couple of scenes where it's like, ew, because of things that are acceptable in China that are not acceptable here, like eating cats. There's a scene where the characters go to a restaurant with the bad guy, and there is baskets and baskets of cats stacked up outside this restaurant, and they're talking about eating them. Not cool. But whatever, that's not our culture. But outside of that, it is a fantastic movie. Introduced me to Michelle Yeoh. Was the first thing I ever saw with her in it. And I was like, I need to watch every single thing that she is in from this point on. And that was like when they started releasing a Jackie Chan movie theatrically every 6 months. New Line would release one, and then Dimension would release one. The New Line would release one, and then Dimension would release one. So here's the original theatrical poster, and here is another one. This is actually the third movie in a series. Police Story is like Jackie Chan's modern day action, like modern day for the 80s. He was always doing like those old kung fu movies that took place like in the Ming Dynasty and all that kind of stuff. But in this series took place in like the 80s, and it's I think the best one that they made. I want to say the fourth one was it First Strike, which was released over here as just First Strike. That one's kind of okay, but the third one is probably my favorite one. But it also comes with a book that has like an essay about the movie and the stunts and everything. Great freaking movie. I absolutely love this. The day that this showed up, I ordered this from Amazon. The day that this showed up, I watched it, and I was like, yes, I need more stuff like this in my life, which is why I kind of went on a kung fu kick for a little while, and I pre-ordered that Heroic Trio set, and there's a couple more you're going to see next week's stream. First martial arts film you saw when you were in karate in first grade, we had a movie, Night at the Dojo. Oh, you talking about Super Cop? When a guy got stabbed in the gut and started puking blood. My dad pulled me from the film, and I don't remember going back to class after that. Might have been in second grade, but I was really young. That's funny. I took karate when I was in junior high, I think it was junior high or high school. And it lasted for 1 year, and I never went back. And it shows. My beautiful figure. Next up, we have the 4-movie Predator collection on 4K. The first 2 films, like the Arnold Predator and the Danny Glover Predator, I really like. I mean, the first one is definitely the best out of the bunch. Super fun, rewatchable, like you would not believe. Tons of great lines. Classic villain. Absolutely love it. And the 3D conversion that I have on disc, on Blu-ray, is probably one of the best 3D Blu-rays I have in my collection. And it's not a movie that was made for 3D. It was converted after the fact, way after the fact, and it's great. Second movie we saw, I saw the first movie in the drive-in with kind of what Peter's talking about here. So I had a friend named Kent when I was a kid. He lived a few doors down from us. His parents were super conservative. Wouldn't let him watch anything violent. Like, we're talking cartoons, too. Like, he was not allowed to watch Tom and Jerry or Popeye cartoons because they were too violent. I remember one day I was at his house, and I was like, oh, Chips is coming on. Can we watch Chips? And his parents were like, no, absolutely not. If you want to watch Chips, you go home. So the thing was, Kent was very curious about the kind of stuff that I got to watch. And I always say that I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies when I was a kid, but anything R-rated that was an action movie or a sci-fi movie or a fantasy movie was fine. So he was spending the night one night when my mom was like, hey, we're going to go and see Predator and RoboCop at the drive-in tonight. And he was like, can I come too? And the whole time he was like absolutely transfixed by the screen, like could not believe he was watching this stuff. And my mom is sitting there going like, you better. I remember my mom saying it to him too. You had better not tell your mom that we took you to see this or I will kick your ass myself, kind of thing. It was great. So saw the first movie in the drive-in, loved it, absolutely loved it. Told all of my friends, you need to watch this movie. It's fantastic. Part 2 comes out. We see it. Came out Thanksgiving Day. Does Predator 2 sound like a Thanksgiving movie? No. But my dad took me and my brother to see it. We all enjoyed it. It was not nearly as good as the first, but it's still fun. And then like way later, we get the third movie, Predators, which is produced by Robert Rodriguez. And I ended up seeing it twice in one day, which was a mistake. So a group of friends and I had made plans to see it. And then while I was on the way to the theater, they had to cancel. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, I'm already on my way there. I'll just go see it. So I go see it, and I'm like, it's all right. It had some cool stuff in it. Adrian Brody as the lead is kind of miscasting. And Alice Braga's in it, and I don't think she's a good actress at all. I never like anything I see her in. But like Mahershala Ali was in it, Danny Trejo was in it, and I'm like, these people are awesome. Topher Grace is in it, and he plays like somebody you think is a nobody, turns out to be a serial killer. So it's got some cool twists and turns and some new predators, and like even Lawrence Fishburne shows up in a part that was supposed to be Danny Glover from the second movie. But like for the most part, I was just like, it's all right. But then I go see the movie, and the moment I walk out of the movie theater, they call me and they're like, oh, our plans changed. We can go and see the movie now. And I didn't want to say like, well, I just walked out of the movie. We'll have to make other plans. But they were like, we really want to go and see it. I was like, okay, fine. So I went and saw a movie that I really didn't care about twice in one day. And I was like, well, I guess, I took one for the team. They seemed to enjoy it. But I was like, whatever. And then we get another sequel, which is The Predator, that came out 2019, which I thought was one of the biggest pieces of shit I have ever seen in my life. You want to talk about a movie that had no focus and no direction? That's the one for you. Autistic kids, being like able to use all the Predator technology and stuff. It's like, what? Like blowing shit up in the neighborhood with the Predator tech. There's little autistic kids running around during Halloween blowing shit up and no one's doing anything. Like some of the stuff that comes out of people's mouths, like everything that comes out of Tom Jane's mouth in it. That's directed towards what's her name from Attack of the Show. Oh God, what's her freaking name? I cannot remember her name from Attack of the Show. Shit. Everything that's directed her way is like cringy AF. Tom Jones. It's just so bad, and then it has the dumbest fucking ending to a movie ever. Originally, the idea was that they were going to do another crossover with the Alien franchise because there's this big pod that shows up, and Ripley was supposed to step out of it, but they couldn't get a deal with Sigourney Weaver to do it. Then the whole idea was Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to pop out of it, but they couldn't get a deal with him. So they like quickly had to come up with a plan, and they're just kind of, oh, we're going to have this be this like super predator killing armor that's going to latch onto this one dude. Huh? It is so bad. Like Jason from Corpse Flood Gaming is like one of the biggest Predator fans I know. And he went and saw it opening night with his wife, and he texted me on Facebook when he got back. He's like, did you see the Predator yet? I'm like, no. He goes, I want to know what you think of it. He's like, let me know when you see it. And I went and saw it like during the following week. And I was in the theater the moment the movie ended. I texted him and was like, that was a piece of dog shit. And he goes, I know, right? And he's like, oh my God, what were they thinking? I'm like, I don't know, but I hated it. So the only reason I'm ever going to have a copy of the Predator in my collection is because it came in this 4K set. Then I found at half-price books for like $15. Coming close to the end, guys. Next up, we have the Criterion of The Princess Bride, and I need to open this. It is so like I love the Criterion collection. I love that they pick the movies that they pick because it's usually something I would like or something that's like off the beaten path. Like they'll pick like movies that are considered absolute classics, like Seven Samurai and stuff like that. But then they'll pick like The Princess Bride or Armageddon or something like that. But when they pick this, and this is like one of those things with Best Buy that was pissing me off. It was like almost like they didn't want you to buy it. So the Criterion Collection stuff is usually a little bit more expensive than your average 4K because they really kind of go all out for not only packaging, but like the extras and the effort that they put into restoring it and all that. So it's kind of like a premium product. Oh shit, when did you break loose? But the thing is, I remember going to Best Buy and seeing this set on sale. And they were selling it for $70. And I remember going like, no, you must not want people to buy that. I'm like, they're trying to get rid of their home video section anyway. I'm like, are you trying to not get people to buy this? Because then you go to Amazon, it's like $35 there. I'm like, huh? Like, where's the disconnect? But anyway, I love the fact that it's like this storybook packaging because it makes sense with the movie. Get off. Which is rad. And it opens up, and there is actually like a little book here. And it has like a little forward by Rob Reiner and tells some stories about the movie. There's actually like chunks of the screenplay in here, which is kind of awesome. And it has the movie on 4K and on Blu-ray and a decent set of extras. This entire section right here is all the extras. But I saw this in the theater when it first was released. And I honestly, like, the trailers made it look like a romance movie, and it is, and all that. But they weren't really playing up the fantasy aspects of it in the trailer. So I was like, I don't want to see some kissy movie. Yeah. But my parents took me to see it anyway, me and my brother. And we walked out of that theater doing the whole, my name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die speech, all the way to the car. Like, we absolutely loved it. So one of my favorite movies, my ex, I took her to see this at the theater. The music box down the street was playing it for Valentine's Day one year, and I took her to see it. And they treated it like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where you walked in and everybody got like a little baggie of goods. And it came with a note, and the note had time code on it. And it was like, when you hear this line of dialogue, do this. And it had like a bunch of little things in there. Like there was like a party popper, and there was like I don't think there was a squirt gun in there, but there was a bunch of stuff like that. And they wanted you to like do them during certain parts of the movie to kind of make it interactive. And it was kind of like what you do when you see Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is pretty cool. I really liked it. I still like the movie. I still think it's fantastic. It's a family comedy like Firefly. They had no idea how to market it. Yeah. But I'm glad that I did end up seeing it. You know, for something that I didn't want, I had no interest in, and then walking out of that theater quoting it, I was like, yeah, that was a win. Next up, we have the Prophecy trilogy from Vinegar Syndrome. Talked about this a few months ago. Got this on one of their sales. I think it was the same sale where I got Existence. But this is I honestly would not call these horror movies. They're like religious thrillers. And I'm not a religious person at all, but I like a good religious thriller. Like, you know, Constantine is awesome. These movies, some of them are awesome. Exorcist 3 is awesome. Stuff like that. Like, I'll watch a religious thriller any day of the week. Actually doing religious things? No. So when the first movie dropped theatrically, it kind of came out of nowhere. It was from Dimension, which is the Weinsteins, and they had a habit of like making a movie, and then they would sell the international distribution rights before it even got a theatrical release over here, and that's how they would make all of their money and profit, was these selling the rights to other countries. And then they would just kind of dump the movie to theater over here to see if it made any money. It was just profit, just pure profit. They didn't advertise it or anything like that. They're just like dump it in a few theaters and see what happens. And that's what happened with The Prophecy. So I remember my brother and I wanted to go and see a movie in the theater this one day during the summer. And we're like, well, everything that's playing we either already seen or it looks stupid. My brother's like, well, what's this Prophecy thing? And I'm like, I don't know. It's got Christopher Walken in it. What do you want to check it out? And he's just like, it looks like a horror movie. I'm like, well, let's go. And we go, and we did not expect to get what we got. So it's a movie that was made with a really small budget. The guy who wrote the original Highlander film directed it. It was his directorial debut, I think. And it was like he did a lot with a little. So it deals with the war in heaven. Angels are pissed off that God spends more time thinking about the humans than the angels. So there's like two factions of angels fighting. There's the ones that are like, God can do no wrong. So if he loves the humans, so be it. And there's the ones that are like, no, we should love us first. Fuck him. And they're fighting. So the bad angels that hate the humans have come down to Earth to look for the worst soul they could possibly find, the worst human soul they can find to help them win the war in heaven. And it's this soldier who did all these war crimes and was just like one of the worst people you could possibly imagine, just evil through and through. And it's the fight over this dude's soul. Who's going to get it? And Christopher Walken plays Gabriel, who was like the general of the army in heaven, of the bad angels. And he's there to steal that soul. And there's a couple that have come down to stop him from doing that. One of them is Eric Stoltz. It has a great cast. It's Elias Koteas, Virginia Madsen, Christopher Walken, what's his name? Amanda Plummer. Like I said, Eric Stoltz. Shit, there's like Viggo Mortensen plays the devil. He plays Satan in it. And it's like they don't have the money for the crazy effects that it would take to like do the wings and everything. So they just do subtle things to make you realize that these people are not human. So whenever they sit, they never sit on a chair. They perch on the back of the chair and sit like a bird would. And it's really kind of cool. There's only maybe one time where you see the shadow of an angel's wings spread, but you never actually see the angel themselves. It's really kind of interesting. And it's like minimal special effects. It's all about like the performances and all that. It is really well made. And we both were like, that was awesome when it was over. Like, that was great. And I even kind of made a fool out of myself in the theater when I saw it. Because when we're watching the beginning of the movie, when they're showing the opening credits, and it was rolling through the cast names, and I said Viggo Mortensen, I'm like, I know Viggo Mortensen's name from somewhere. I just can't place it. Turns out I had seen him in Crimson Tide the year before. And I just could not place the face. So when he shows up at the end of the movie as Satan, I say out loud, I go, oh, it's Viggo. And it reminded me instantly of that character from Ghostbusters 2, Janosch, the one who ends up becoming like a collaborator with Viggo in it. So when I said, oh, it's Viggo, it came out like, oh, it's Viggo from that movie. So I continued with it, and I go, you're like the buzzing of flies to him. And I look at my brother, I'm like, that was funny, right? My brother's just looking at me like, shut up. But I kind of glance ahead, and there's like these three guys sitting in a row, 2 rows ahead of us, and the two of them kind of like look my way, and they kind of went, that was funny. I was like, okay, that was funny. Shut the fuck up. You're a bad brother. I didn't say anything out loud after that. But super fun movie. It's really well made, really creative, has an interesting soundtrack. I like it quite a bit. It's an interesting story, too. Like I said, with no budget, it makes you do creative things, and they did a lot. Well, the movie did not make a lot of money theatrically because it did not get a great release. It did not get a big release. But it did make a lot of money on home video, so there are direct-to-video sequels like you wouldn't believe. So they made 3 total movies with Christopher Walken as Gabriel. And over the movies, he kind of transitions from being like the big bad in the first one, and in the third one, he's actually kind of a good guy. They're varying in quality. Like the second one is okay, the third one's kind of okay. But they made a 4th and a 5th one that have nothing to do with Gabriel, and they're really terrible. So I'm not sad that they're not in this set. I did have a set with all 5 movies in it on Blu-ray, but it was from this company that just puts out like VHS quality stuff on Blu-ray and doesn't give a shit. And I remember I watched the original Prophecy on that set, and at times it looked like I was watching a VHS tape. And I was like, yeah, if this ever comes out somewhere else, I'm buying that set instead. So this came out. So you've got, I guess that's supposed to be Gabriel on the front. On the back, you've got the corpse of an angel. But the cool thing is the way this opens is this slides off, and you can see, because that's what Satan does at the end of the movie when he goes away. He's like trying to threaten people at one point in the movie, and then when he's like, well, I guess it ain't working, and he walks away, he turns into a flock of birds. So maybe that's supposed to be Satan right there. But take this off, and you've got the symbol of the Nephilim, which is from one of the sequels, and then you've got all 3 movies, and each of them has a decent set of extras. All this paragraph right here is all the extras for the movies, so that's pretty rad. I highly recommend watching at least the first one if you can. First one is pretty self-contained, but I highly recommend it. It's really fun. Sure, corpse of an angel. Angel corpse. It probably already is, too. You want the Rocky Horror Princess Bride. It was really cool to see it like done like that. I didn't expect it, but I guess because it was Valentine's Day, they decided to do something that the couples can do together. And the last movie I'm going to talk about tonight is this box set of Psycho. The story continues. This is kind of like the Jaws sequel set I have has Psycho 2, 3, and 4 in it. Psycho 1, one of my favorite movies of all time. Absolute classic. I remember I had never seen the original when I was a kid. So when Psycho 2 came out in like 1981 or 2, whenever it dropped, I don't remember. It's 81 or 82. I remember the backlash that it got. Like, people were up in arms. Like, there is no way a sequel should ever be made to Psycho. It is like a perfect film. You do not soil a movie like that with a shitty sequel. And my dad was one of those people too. My dad's like, no, we're not. I remember my mom saying something like, should we go see Psycho 2? No, I obviously wasn't going to go see it. My brother and I were not going to go see it. But like, they were talking about what they were going to do on date night. And my mom's like, should we go see Psycho 2? And my dad's like, there is no way in hell I'm watching that. No. Like, no way, no. And I remember reading the reviews in the paper, and it got really good reviews. And people are like, this is better than it has any right to be. And it's not just a repeat of what the first one was. It's something totally different. But didn't get a chance to watch it until the 90s. I'd say the late 80s is when I finally watched Psycho, and I really liked it. I thought it was pretty fantastic the way it kind of like rope-a-doped you. Makes you think one thing is going to be happening, and then they kill the main character like 30 minutes into the movie and switches it focus to somebody else who you think is the hero, and it turns out they're the villain. It's really, really cool. And then the second movie, I finally rented it on home video, and I didn't know what to expect, and I was completely blown away by what they did with it. So Norman gets captured at the end of the first movie, put in a mental institution for impersonating his dead mother and killing all these people. So he's considered rehabbed and sent back into the world. And you really get to feel that you feel bad for him. Like he did some horrible things because he was brought up like in a really bad environment. And, this was like the only option he thought he had available to him was to do these things. Well, he now knows that everything he did was bad, and he's definitely trying to make up for it and atone for it. So he's really sympathetic. But people that cannot accept the fact that he has been released at all are trying to drive him crazy again. And it's really kind of upsetting to watch it happen. You're basically watching Norman lose his mind over the course of the movie. And if they just left him alone, none of this shit would have happened. And it's really well done the way they do it. Sure, it does fall into some slasher movie tropes where, like I said, gore was starting to become the big thing. And in this one, it's like every chance they got to show blood splashing over something or some grisly murder scene. But outside of that, it is a really well-made, kind of classy movie that has another really cool twist ending and ends in a place you did not see coming. And I was like, it is better than it has any right to be for a sequel that was made like 20 years later. So absolutely loved it. So could not wait to go and rent the third movie, which was released, I want to say like 3 or 4 years after the second one, and was actually directed by Anthony Perkins, who plays Norman in these movies. It was his directorial debut. And while the movie is also technically well made and continues the story right where the second one left off, it does fall even further into that slasher trap where it's like, let's just show as much gore as we possibly could. and all that, and have some weird Twin Peaks type moments and all that. But it ends in a place where Norman realizes what he's doing is bad and is like, look, I should not be out here. Like, just take me away kind of thing. And it's really kind of cool. Even though it's really short and like he falls in love with somebody that's like another tragic kind of character in his life, but they don't develop her all that well. You don't really learn a whole lot about her. You just learn that she did something kind of bad when she was a nun. You find out she was a nun. And she too is kind of damaged the way that Norman is, but you don't really learn a whole lot about her the way you know all about Norman. You don't learn about her as much as you know about Norman. So when the bad things happen, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. But still, it's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad as far as you ask me. But Psycho 4, because Psycho 3 did not perform very well, when they wanted to make another one, it went direct to cable. I think it was a Showtime movie. And it's directed by that freaking hack, Mick Garris, who has made a career out of turning almost every Stephen King short story into a really crappy TV movie. And it's basically like Norman got out, and he's married, and his wife is now pregnant, and he's talking to like a radio show psychologist about what made him do what he did in the first movie, like what his upbringing was like. And it's a flashback movie. It's like a prequel about him as a kid, played by Elliot from E.T., and his abusive mother and why he ended up poisoning her and starting this killing spree thing and all that. And he's afraid that that his sickness is going to transfer over to his kid. And he's trying to decide if he should like kill his wife and in turn kill his kid so he doesn't like transfer this like madness over. And it's okay, but it's just the whole backstory stuff. We got all the information you needed in the first and second movie about it. You don't need to see it all played out. It's just kind of like a pointless thing. It was just like a cash grab. Kind of like the way Underworld 3 was, where you got all the information you needed about that story, and then they had to make an entire movie about it for no reason. But it's not like it's bad or anything. It's just not needed at all. But yeah, that's it for tonight. Another really long one, 2.5 hours. Jesus Christ, I'm going to be hoarse as you would not believe tomorrow. Luckily, we got a 3-day weekend to recover. So I'm going to say there is not going to be a recent pickups stream at the end of the month. On Saturday, there will not be a stream. I did not. I got the hiccups out of nowhere. I did not buy enough stuff this month. Turns out my new car is actually like killing me financially. And the way my electric bill has been too, with my AC basically been on nonstop for like 3 months. It's kind of murdering me in the wallet. So I really haven't been buying much of anything. Some pre-order stuff has shown up and all that when it comes to movies and all that. And I've gotten maybe 2 video games this month. So I'm not going to do a stream. I'll do a combination August and September stream at the end of September. So the next stream is going to be next Thursday, which is going to be the final 4K box set stream, which is going to be even more 4K UHD box sets. So stay tuned for that, 8:30 p.m. Central next Thursday. And then also on Saturday, I'm going to release the newest episode of my Dungeons & Dragons campaign, Tides of Flame. We just streamed it last weekend, but we've already planned for the next game, and that's going to be next weekend. So with so little time in between games, I want to get the newest episode out so everyone that wants to watch it can be caught up with what's going to happen in the next one that we stream next weekend. So keep an eye out for that. And I will talk to you all later. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you all later. Have a good night. Chris of Midlife Crisis Media out.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker!